Tonight of the Rockport Select Board. It's Monday, April 13th, 6 p.m. here in the Parker Room of the Opera House. John, you want to start us off here?
Yeah, so we may have some folks from the Warrenton Street neighborhood, and we've had some emails going back and forth, and some questions or concerns, and just wanted to maybe level set a little bit in terms of what we know, and there's a lot of things out there, of course, that not everyone knows, but I just wanted to sort of state the record and kind of clear things up, because I think maybe there's a little bit that's been a little bit off center. So the project, there's a project on Warrenton Street that was set up through the November 2024 bond issue for stream crossings. This was a vote that the town took at that time. There were a handful of areas identified and streets of particular concern with stream crossings that were sort of in danger, either because the streams themselves were of high value or the actual crossing itself, maybe the culvert was in risk of failure, or so there was a number of different criteria that were involved in that. But there were a number of areas that were identified in that bond, and one of those areas was Warrenton Street. There's two parts to the project in that area. The first is a collection effort of collecting stormwater from the uphill southwest side of the road, and to put that into a structured drainage before it would actually get to the roadway, so obviously to preserve the road. Second part was the rehabilitation or potential replacement of the large culvert, which empties onto the beach in Glen Cove. So through this process, and obviously there were a series of locations that were higher on the list, West Street Extension being one, Meadow Street being another, that had sort of moved ahead and because of conditions of the pipes or where the town is working. So last year, Garley Dorsky was employed to design a plan, and this project was put out to bid with hopes of completion in the fall of 2025. Obviously, as we sit here in the spring of 2026, that did not occur. The winning bidder, Farley Incorporated, informed the town that they couldn't complete the project until this year. They had too much work in that fall session. The hopes were to have the work completed as soon as possible, so that there were no conflicts with the potential of the town's paving of Warrenton Street, which is part of the road plan that's in the budget. That was just, well, it's on the warrant tonight. So with the added time that was given to the project, it was handed off to the Pathways Committee to review an abbreviated review of what is still a draft Complete Streets policy. It's not a policy that's come before the board, but the attempt is for the Pathways Committee to be involved and engaged in that process, and to ensure that the work that is looking at the totality of what's needed on a street, not just those of us who are driving, but those who are walking, biking, and other users. So the idea was for Pathways to have a chance to review that and then provide recommendations, which they have, and those have been incorporated. However, one section they weren't able to get to was the public outreach, which obviously takes the longest amount of time. And part of the reason why they're unable to get to that public outreach is that the town 2 weeks ago was informed that the contractor planned to begin work this month. And with that, there's been some flagging that's been done to inform DigSafe of where potentially the extent of where the work could be, as well as just to make them aware that where the utilities might be potentially impacted. So once we learned of their intent, we sent a letter out. The Director of Community Planning sent out with the Public Works Director a letter to all the abutters to say, this is what the project entails. If you have any questions, reach out. And since that point, our Public Works Director has met with a number of residents who live along the stretch of road. Maybe not everyone, but a great number of them. And still has plans to meet with more. This project is entirely on town property. So there have been assertions to the otherwise, but this is entirely on town property, which formally is called the right-of-way. And my suggestion, anybody, and in fact, whether it's this project, the next project, or you just want to know where you are on the face of the earth, there is a tool on our town assessor's webpage on the town's website that will really help you to identify the boundaries of your property, at least as we understand them to be. And if there's anything that's incorrect or improper, reach out, let us know. That data was largely used to draw the plans, and from where that right of way sort of is used and placed onto those maps. The biggest change in the project, and perhaps for some concern, maybe not everyone's concern, but some concern, is that aside from addressing stormwater, the potential project removes the sidewalk that existed on Warrenton Street. Now, as I understand, the sidewalk was constructed back in the era when the post office was back in Glen Cove. Yes, there was a post office in Glen Cove. And the town has not conducted any meaningful maintenance to that sidewalk since that point, certainly in decades. So to install the stormwater project at the same time required removal of the existing sidewalk. And then to reinstall a new sidewalk is obviously a cost that would be tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars more. And so that obviously is of great concern, and needing to keep project costs low and trying to deal with what's at stake. That's a large reason why you engage a pathways committee to say, is the use of this area fitting for what you're doing or not? So the recommendations from pathways have largely been that there'll be a paved shoulder, signage and adequate striping to try to shrink some travel ways, to force trucks and other motorists to slow down, provide room for those who are biking, hiking, walking, whatever that might be, and to give them that shoulder space that all of us who are walking and biking in these areas want. So it's all of that. There's a lot that's gone into this, but I know there's some who still haven't had a chance. We had a resident or a property owner who reached out to me today, who had some concern and wanted to come tonight and was unable to. And so what we'd like to do is set up a neighborhood meeting. So for everyone, I know we've got some folks here from the neighborhood, to reach out. Orion Thomas, who's our Planning Community Development Director. I'm away at the end of this week and next, but Orion's gonna shepherd those emails and addresses. So anyone can reach out. You can email Thomas, the letter O, and then Thomas, THOMAS, at rockportmaine.gov, and Orion will gather that information and we'll work with Mike to set up a time for everyone to meet over on site and walk through the plan. So I know we've been able to connect with, and Mike's been able to connect individually with a lot of property owners and neighbors there, but I know there's certainly more. And there's a lot of individual issues too. So it might be a mailbox, it might be a walkway, it might be someone's driveway. How do you incorporate that when, particularly on that uphill side, that's really the side that would see a great deal of impact. So trying to work through all these issues and hoping that we can incorporate them into a better solution. So
That's great. So that meeting will be an opportunity to sort of lay the facts out.
Yeah.
You've done that a little bit here, so that we're at least, everybody's operating from the same set of facts, because we've seen assertions and contentions that aren't accurate with respect to this project. So I think that'll help.
John's good, yeah.
So, John, while we're on the subject, so there's two culverts. One's closer to Route 1, and the big one you're talking about is right by the pump station.
That's right. Yeah, the big one, yeah.
So the lane that's been recommended for biking, walking, how significant is the additional cost of the project to do that? Are we just talking about striping, or are we?
We're talking about striping.
We're not
We're
building a
not
sidewalk.
widening the street beyond what it was originally going to be, right?
Right. It's a question of really, you have to replace what's there, right? And if you're not moving in that direction, and you're simply paving it, the maintenance costs go significantly down. You may be able, and you'd be able to plow that, as opposed to right now. It's
Well, I guess I'm just trying to get clear, John.
yeah.
So the original road that we planned to put in there once we replace the culverts.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed because of putting a bike lane on there.
No.
It's just narrowed the
The traffic
The
lanes.
traffic lane,
Right,
the
we're-
auto traffic lanes.
Right, the VPI, I mean, we just went through this in the VPI effort, was really showing that trying to limit with striping and signage is effective. Now, there are those who disagree with that assertion, but certainly the engineers that we employed with the VPI effort, and again, it's a different section of the town, but I don't think the engineering changes because you're in a different part, a different village,
I,
you know?
I think there's one point that is very much of a concern to the people, or a question.
Yeah.
Is the existing sidewalk that's there. That is so deteriorated in this road project that's being taken out.
That's being
correct?
taken
Okay.
out.
So I think that's a lot of the concern. They like, well, there was gonna be a sidewalk, and why not replace the sidewalk? So what's happening with it? So that sidewalk area itself will become part of this path.
That's right,
Right?
yeah.
And then that's just extended up to where there is no sidewalk.
Yeah,
and
if you,
beyond.
when you get a chance to look at the plans, and not everyone here certainly has, but I know Pathways had a chance to review the plans, and certainly I would expect Mike will have those when the meeting occurs. You can see the extent of where that construction is, and it's where the existing sidewalk is.
Right.
That's where the catch basins would go, where the piping underneath the earth will go. It's, unfortunately, it's a 1-for-1, but it's also, it's not 1+1.
Right.
Right, and that's an important, I think, distinction to make. It's difficult to work in tight quarters, and you want to be able to work through in rights of way where you have the ability to work. Another point that's important is if there was anything that did cross on a private landowner's property, that's something that would require an easement or some other legal instrument to require that. You can't, the town can't simply just go work on anyone's property if they want to. They have to work within the rights of way they have. Hi,
So,
John.
John, just to go back again, the original bond, as it was presented to the voters to get approved, the plan has not changed as far as where the roadway is going to be going in with that funding. That plan has not changed for, when was the bond approved? 2 years ago?
Yeah, November of '24.
Okay,
Yeah, and the drawings, I mean, drawings were drawn, more, the last draft is certainly more recently than that, but the scope has not altered in any way.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, John. Amendments to,
Can we,
we'll have let me just do amendments to the agenda and then public comments, and then if you want to come up. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I have a couple of things I'd like to add to the agenda if I could.
Okay,
Can we talk a little bit about what our plan is to do to follow up on a regionalization task force? I didn't see that anywhere on here. And then the Warrenton Street project, to me, raises a question of clarifying what is our policy or practice about a butter notification when we have a town project. I know it's not, again, it's not required by the land use ordinance. Municipal properties are exempt from that. But I just want to understand what we can tell residents as far as what they can expect if some project is going to be coming in, down the street that they live on. So I'd love to have a little discussion about that.
okay. So, John, you're requesting that we amend the agenda to include those two things as discussion items?
Yep,
Want to make a motion to that effect?
sure. I move that we add for discussion, regionalization task force, establishing a regionalization task force and discussing the public notice policy and practices for the town when it comes to municipal projects.
No, I had initially as a butter notification, but
Butter notification, yeah.
Okay.
That's a lot more
That's-
succinct,
I think we're more set up to do something like that. I don't know about.
yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Kim? And any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 4-0. So we'll put those as discussion items, so that'll be at the end, after our action items tonight. All right, public comment on non-agenda items. So if you want to come up, there's microphones here. We need you to state your name and address, and then any comments you have. And we typically don't respond to the comments. We'll hear you, and we're already trying to anticipate them by giving you a forum through a community meeting, but.
Seems weird to sit as opposed to stand when I'm talking to a board, but my name is Keith Susi. I live at 20 Warrenton Street. Been a resident in the town for almost 5.5 years now. I've tried to break my comments into sections, but I kind of want to respond to what John went through, and I appreciate your patience. Appreciate the opportunity to express my concerns. I understand, we're trying to do the right things for the town. And I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I personally don't have issue with doing the capital improvements, particularly with stormwater runoff and those types of things that we need to do. We know we have problems in that section of town. I have problems with my property because of water runoff from what would be, I guess, the northwest side coming down from Route 1. So, we realize what we're trying to do here, but when we look at the neighborhood, a couple of things about notifying. I mean, the concentration of Airbnbs or rental units on that street is probably 75%. So when you reach out to the neighborhood in March and April, there's nobody home. So I want to make that point first. And, I went away for 2 weeks. I came back, I had white flags in my yard. I'm like, okay. Last summer, I'm in my yard, someone shows up and paints a white cross in my yard, in my driveway. What's this about? No idea. A couple weeks later, someone else paints white lines on the driveway. I don't know what's going on still. It's frustrating. But to the point, John, it sounds like decisions are already made. And it sounds like we're trying to catch up now. And if we're starting the stormwater component, presumably within a couple weeks, wouldn't the pathways situation be done at the same time? I mean, what is the point of us having a community meeting if the train has left the station and decisions have been made without our input and are now on a schedule? I don't understand how that can be. I still haven't heard from anybody, when would this trail be put in? Is it at the same time? Is it a second phase? Is it the same time? I know you don't have to respond.
Yeah, and it'll be explained in the, I think that's part of the purpose of the community meeting, is to present the information.
And that's fine. I don't want to take up all of the meeting tonight, with due respect. But we talk about the width, and John, I really appreciate you going into depth on this, but it's still not clear to me. I look at the existing road, and I look at the sidewalk next to it, and I stand on the side of the road and I look a straight line down the white flags, and they are all 3 to 4 feet beyond the existing paved roadway on both sides. So if we're marking flags that are 6 to 8 feet wider than the current profile, which includes the sidewalks, by the way, on the sidewalk side, those flags are 3 to 4 feet beyond the sidewalk. That certainly sounds like we're widening the road to me.
Well, and those may be public right-of-ways as opposed to where the project, and that's where the community meeting can really help answer your questions.
Regardless,
Yeah.
my lot is about 1/2 acre. If you take those 3 feet off my front yard, you're taking 400 square feet of my property. In the December storms 2 years ago, I lost 8 to 10 feet on the back sand dunes already. So I think I'm going to have to ask for a tax abatement because my acreage is shrinking. And I know of one person who lives across the street. Their property is on like 0.15 acre.
Mr. Susi, I really appreciate your comments and concerns, and we want to hear more, but we also have a lot of things on our
Okay.
agenda, so if we
I will
could-
move along.
Yeah.
The other thing I see when I look at the flags is there's utility poles inside the right-of-way. So I don't know what we're doing with those. There's just so many questions. I look at my neighbor, you take 3 feet away, his shrubs are gonna be right on the street. I can't see backing out of my driveway. And, I mean, you can meet with the community.
So
Again,
please
my
provide
point-
Orion your email so you can be sure and be able to.
Send them an email, send them an email.
No, I mean so that you can be
We're
informed
doing
of the
that, but
community
my-
meeting.
These questions aren't that complicated. Is the existing paved roadway with the sidewalk that's there today, when we're done with this project, including 2 narrow travel lanes and a, whatever you're calling this, utility lane to nowhere, it stops, that pathway is gonna end at the most dangerous point on Warrenton Street, the most dangerous point. And you're taking away the 2 parking spots there for people who dare scramble down the side. The whole thing just, we're all shaking our heads in disbelief. You're gonna ruin a beautiful residential neighborhood. We have 18-wheelers go through there all day long. You can't fit one next to each other now.
If we could give you a couple
I'm
more
done.
minutes and,
I'm done.
okay. I
Thank you.
appreciate and hear your concerns and.
Yeah, no, so I'm also, I have a place at 15 Warrenton Street, and I know how these things.
Your name, please?
Oh, sorry, Catherine Ledner.
Okay.
I understand that this project has already been green lighted, you're going. I agree with previous speaker that this is a road to nowhere. You're going between Route 1 and that power station. If you're making I understand the stormwater thing, that's important to do. However, this other pathway thing, who is it for? And where are these people gonna be coming from? Because if you take away the couple of parking spaces that occur naturally right now by that little station, if they're no longer there, are these people gonna magically fly in on a helicopter so they can use the pathway in front of our place? I mean, Route 1 is busy, and this road ends at the station. Who's gonna come? Where are they gonna park? How are they gonna use it? That's one question. Second question is, my place is the only one on the street that, my place was originally a Grange Hall of Rockport. It was a very old building. It was moved there sometime in the 50s. I don't know when. But I'm up high. So you're going to have to put in a retaining wall in front of 15 Warrenton because there's some rocks there now holding back the dirt. I'm assuming if you go back, you're going to have to build a retaining wall there. And the other thing, if you're moving, those flags sit where pretty much right on the line with the utility poles, as Keith was saying. So they're going to have to be moved, I'm assuming, which is if you stand in front of 15 Warrenton and you look up, if you move those poles in, you're moving the lines in. Those lines, there must be some state law that says how close those lines can come in front of my property. But those power lines will now be like where the TV is. I mean, all the utility poles right there in front of my window. So,
And I think we'll have the right people at the community meeting to at least answer the questions.
when is the community meeting?
That's what email Orion, he'll be in touch with the group. Because there's not
It hasn't been set yet.
it hasn't been set, but we can find availability to try to make sure that people can attend the meeting when they're.
Yeah.
But I would briefly say, I would suggest for both of you to please check that tool so you can see your property boundaries and where you exist. It's really helpful, and I think it may help answer some questions, maybe not all, but some of your questions that you have in terms of locations and what's where, and those utility poles are within the right of way as we understand it to be. But I would suggest look at your whole property so you can answer some of those questions.
Have you guys talked about where these people who are going to come and enjoy that path, where are they going to park?
The Pathways Committee is just getting into that. Existing already, there are apparently a lot of people that walk the loop from the Samoset and all these other places. So there is currently an existing body of people that bike and walk and all that. But the parking thing was just discussed last week, and a potential solution for people that go and walk down to the beach, park and walk to the beach, is potentially make a beach access from the Clam Cove, little space on Route 1, where that little park is on Route 1.
Glen Cove.
Glen Cove,
The
Glen Cove, yeah.
Park there.
There's the parking space and all that. Apparently, that was discussed years ago to potentially do that, to avoid people
I don't know
parking.
where that is.
Yeah, it's right on Route 1,
Oh,
the rest area.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
that's insane.
this is all,
Well-
and it's all, none of it has been finalized, it's just in
And Michael's our
discussion.
liaison to the Pathways Committee.
Yeah,
And one of the reasons we wanted to have John sort of explain it is that the select board doesn't plan stream crossing projects, and we don't get involved in the nitty-gritty of these projects. We hear your concerns and want to make sure that there's a forum, that it can be discussed, people can get correct information, to the extent input is, if the pathway may be a little bit less determined.
Okay, so this pathway is, to be clear, you're making this pathway specifically for the people who already use it for running, and
well,
it's not like new people
Well-
are gonna
well,
come.
yeah, and I don't want
Let's
to
have
get
the
into this, but.
discussion in the
yeah.
committee meeting, because I appreciate
I
you
think-
both taking the time, but.
In summary, it's not, we don't have a full plan ready to roll, and we're just pumping it, and we're still developing potential plan.
And we'll take input.
How
Well-
would you say that? We're starting
Well,
construction.
for the road part,
You said they're being done together.
the only part of the pathway, the only part of the pathway that's, it's a test thing, because that sidewalk's being taken out, we'd thought, okay, well, maybe instead of building a new sidewalk that goes to nowhere, maybe we can use this as a potential test for this larger thing,
Complete streets
which
policy, which,
I'm hoping to alleviate instead of add to the confusion, but it's not set in stone. We haven't got a plan that's going full steam ahead, no matter what he says. And if it weren't
Okay.
for the fact that
well,
Farley
let's
was
move
now
on,
gonna do it,
because we do have a pretty
we
full
would have had
agenda.
meetings and stuff.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I think my
None of my
Please.
questions have been answered.
Well,
We
I
we are
think
not
that
the
the
ones to
hangup-
answer your questions.
Answer those questions.
Well,
That's his
He
job,
was
right?
nodding his head, when he knows 15 Warrington Street, you know you gotta build a wall there.
So, yeah, so it is on the plan existing, and so because again, I don't wanna take a whole bunch of time to go over individual situations, but on the plan is existing, I'm glad to send it to you, or if I get your email, or Ryan gets your email, glad to send you the whole plan so you can see exactly, and it will answer a lot of your questions.
and this is
How
the
do we
engineering
stop
plan.
that from happening right now? What steps that's why I came to the select board, because I believe you are the only people who can stop this project in its tracks so that we can approach this correctly. I feel like we are being totally ignored and it's extraordinarily mistreated in this process.
All right, first of all, nobody can hear you who's not watched, because you're not at the microphone, but enough is enough. We appreciate you coming and listening to what you have to say. As I said, the select board is not the body that makes decisions on stream crossings, the nitty-gritty of the engineering. This project has been on the board for 2 years. It's gonna happen. We want you to come to a community meeting where you can learn what the project really encompasses and what impacts, because I think there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding out there, because this project came up quickly with the contractor saying, we're gonna get started. So, let's move on.
Sorry, it's ridiculous,
No,
I mean.
okay, we're gonna move on with our meeting. Okay, next, we have the town manager's report and updates.
Okay, so we have obviously
Is there further public comment on non-agenda items? Okay,
When I got in the truck tonight, the phone came on, it says 10 minutes to the Opera House.
why not? Why not come?
Well, it's because I come over so much.
Yeah, we would miss you. if you weren't.
I know you would. I know you would. I'm just thinking, when my phone starts telling me that, there's a problem. So, Rick Mitchell of West Rockport, thank you for a few minutes. I had a couple of thoughts. Totally understand where these people are coming from, don't know much about it, but maybe your public meeting could be, your comment could be good at the beginning and at the end, if you guys would take that in consideration, because when you guys get through for the night, it might be able to give you guys some thoughts on what's been talked about. Just a thought from me that sits up there for hours and listens and watches, and was thinking about that. You guys understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I had it down on here, and I had a whole bunch of stuff down on here, but I'm gonna close out with one thing, but I really wanted to thank, and I didn't know that Jason was gonna be here, and I'm sorry that he is, but you guys have got a volunteer fire department that's not costing the town a penny, considered to what they do. And I really think they should be recognized.
Very true.
I really do. I mean, and one of them sits on the budget committee, and I think he's part of what makes that volunteer department so strong. And they've been there, the Rollinses have been there since I was a kid. So just wanted to bring that to you guys and say, hey, if that volunteer thing disappears, I just can't imagine that. So, okay?
Yep.
I really had a lot of things I wanted to touch base on, but I know you guys are running short on time. Please be mindful of that when you guys do open up for public comment. I really wanted to tell you that I was out and about Thursday afternoon in that sun, gathering my signatures for the budget committee. You look at my sheet, and my sheet says, my wife. Well, you gotta have your wife support you for anything, okay? She signed it first. And my son signed it. And then I says, okay, neighbor two signed it. But on Thursday, I was out in town, and not a soul knew me. And I was feeling a little bit weird, because I tooted my horn, and I said, excuse me, sir, could you sign my papers? Well, what are you doing? And I told him, and I picked up 10 or 15 people that I didn't even know. The message that I want to bring to you guys is that please be considerate of the town and the residents and their tax bills, because they're really, really feeling it. They're really feeling it, you know, and figure out what your priorities are and bring it back to the town, and bring it back in a manner that they can talk to you about it. And if you need to do more meetings or more committees, do them. I don't know, but I can tell you, I don't know who these people were that signed my paperwork. And I'm not gonna quote some of it. I'm just gonna say, there's a lot of concern out there, and I'm just one little guy from West Rockport. They had no idea who I was. So you guys can have that. It's free information for what it's worth. I did want to say, boy, I got some good things here too, guys, too. I'm rushed. I really feel like a couple of things during the budget committee that I picked up on. You guys have got some great people. And I'm looking over here because I heard them say they were willing to help on committees for hiring. When you guys are hiring a fire chief, not a fire chief, but a police chief, you really should bring some of these guys in and talk to them. I have no idea who your acting one is. I have no idea whether they're able to do it or not. But you should open it up to the...
Rick, I don't want to, but I did cut other people off, so I want to make sure that you-
Yeah, and I don't think I had nearly the time yet. So
Okay.
I'll finish this up, Denise,
Okay.
but I'm serious. You guys,
I'm not taking away anything
you
that
sure
you're saying.
are.
I'm just trying to
You sure
respect
are. You're shutting people down, and you need to give us a few minutes,
Okay.
okay? These guys are offering to look at committees, and if you're looking at a fire chief or a police chief or some leader in town, please use their abilities, you know? Don't get caught with somebody in there that you don't really wish you'd had, and I don't know if that's ever happened, but every town or every business that I've known doesn't just make it all on John to hire that person. Shouldn't be all on you, John. You should be able to reach out and say to some educated people what's going on, okay?
Thanks,
So,
Rick.
I'll let it go at that. I just know that, I'm just telling you, if I'm coming to you with the people that I talked to on Thursday night, and all I did was just scally up some signatures so I could get on the budget committee, I was really surprised. And if you guys aren't hearing it, you just did. And I'm telling you right up front, okay? So, thank you for my
Thanks,
time.
Rick.
Thank you, Rick. Is there any other public comment on non-agenda items? Okay, then let's move to the town manager's report.
Okay, well, obviously tonight you have the warrant, the annual town meeting warrant is on your agenda for consideration. That is obviously the end of the budget process, but to maybe just very briefly talk about that process. So on the 30th of March, the select board finalized their proposed municipal budget that will assuming action's taken tonight, will go before the voters in June. The proposed budget decreases by 0.49% over this current year's budget. So it's the first decrease that the town has had in a municipal budget in 16 years. This is, the budget will be first considered by voters. It's an accomplishment for, I think, not only the select board, the budget committee, staff, employees, the public, folks like Rick coming in. This has been, we would not be in the circumstance we are in without many hands making that work happen. While certainly the proposed budget was under 1%, there was more sharpening, more work within that process, and it did exactly as it's supposed to do, which is considered, measured conversation about the needs and where the town stands and what the town can afford. And, particularly the last several sessions, I think were very fruitful and very beneficial in having a really important conversation about what the town faces and how to get there. And, there were 8 budget committee members who attended pretty consistently every meeting. Maybe one person who missed one meeting, but excuse me, other than that, it was, full attendance from this group and in large part by the budget committee. And, I think the final result is indicative of that. It showed just how much hard work and effort went into trying to make tough decisions. And while the select board accepted the vast majority of the budget committee's conversations and recommendations, I think a lot of those recommendations were somewhat well-sourced and sort of collaborative. And I think the budget committee heard the board's opinions and, really came through with an important list of 10 recommendations. So, then the question from then is, of course, you've adopted that, you've approved it. Obviously, the town only has a certain percentage of the tax bill that is the municipal budget, and the school and the county will be almost 2/3 of the tax bill that will go out this summer. And unfortunately, it appears there'll be a substantial increase on a county level. I think around a 2.93% increase at the schools. So there will be a tax increase, property tax increase by no fault of the municipal budget, which is all, this body has before it. But certainly, to Rick's point, there is more concern, and it remains a concern. People are feeling pressures everywhere, whether it's their tax bill, whether it's the utility bill, whether it's getting groceries, there's pressures. And of course, those pressures also impact our ability to provide service as well. But ultimately, we have to respond in kind. So anyway, it was a long process, but I think it was one where the result in the end is very responsive to what people are saying, feeling, and thinking in Rockport right now. So that's all I had on the budget. I wanted to thank Vesper Hill Foundation and Maine Coast Heritage Trust for payments of lieu of taxes. We'd mentioned that through the budget process, and I don't think necessarily because of the budget process, but those are 2 organizations and nonprofits who are very important in the town of Rockport, and want to make sure they get notification of their support of payment in lieu of taxes. Maybe people don't understand what that process is, but effectively, these organizations have no obligation to write a check to the town of Rockport for the services the town provides to support the missions of those organizations.
Well, as nonprofits on
Right.
property, they don't pay property
Right.
taxes.
Right, so there's no payment that covers our cost to deliver those services. And these are entities that have chosen to, through their own organization, say, we want to help offset that impact. So, very appreciative of that, and again, thank you, Vesper Hill Foundation and Maine Coast Heritage Trust. The June ballot is set with Friday's deadline, which for nomination papers being due. There are 2 seats that are open on the select board for 3-year terms. Kim Graffam, Michael Thompson, Samantha Appleton, and Darren Robbins have returned papers and are on the ballot. We have one select board term for 1 year. Papers have been submitted by, and on the ballot will be Craig Mitchell, Linda Greenlaw, Jeffrey Parker. On the library committee, 1 3-year term for Lee Goss. And there are 3 budget committee 3-year terms, Bill Bowe, Terry Abrams, Rick Mitchell, and Clark Doran. And then the school board has a 3-year term. Cricket Fuller filled out the only papers for that. So those names will be on the ballot. The ballot will be in process. Once you approve your warrant tonight, warrant will then turn into a ballot, and at some point in the next 3 weeks or so, we'll have sample ballots that'll be posted on the website. Probably around the same time, actual absentee ballots will be available. However, absentee ballot requests are now available. So even though we don't have the ballots yet, anyone who wishes to vote absentee can request at any time. Again, this is a primary year for various state and federal offices, actually county offices as well. So there will be some energy that goes into that effort. You can make your request online. I put the link in my report here, but you can also call the town office or visit in person and get request that ballot.
And if you click on that link, then the ballot will be mailed to you, is that
Yeah,
correct?
it goes into the system. That's right. It'll go into the system. The clerk's office will see that request and fulfill that request for you.
Okay.
So it's a very simple way to move. Yeah. Moving on, we have a property tax due date is due tomorrow, or excuse me, on Wednesday, the 15th. That is coming up very soon. We have our dog licenses. There are still a number of people who have not yet paid for their dog licenses, and unfortunately, it's a $25 fee. They're after the due date. So our apologies to that, but unfortunately, that's the law. And I also wanted to just mention, we have a number of items that, sort of elsewhere in the public works world. There is other projects that are occurring right now, brush cutting in particular on Keller Drive, other parts of Warrenton Street, Vinyl Street as well. This is the time of year where we can begin to prepare for the summer construction season. So this is the time you can brush cut. There isn't a lot of digging you can do. It's still too wet. There was a pretty, some work done over at the Marge Jones entrance. The Public Works crew did some cutting and resetting a culvert down there, which should help to drain that property and allow for the road to be a little drier than usual. We do have some floats that have gone in the water. Commercial float is already in the harbor. More floats will be in over the next few weeks as we begin our May 1st sort of beginning of that season. Certainly, while Abby remains out, if you have questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. That's it.
Great. Any questions for John, or?
Yeah, I have a couple. John, I want to just do a shout out on the digital interactive map with the building permit data. That's a really nice new feature on the town website. There's a ton of really good information in there, and thank Orion for making that happen. I believe, Orion, you worked with the county on that, their GIS person?
No, the map that we have, the public-facing map for the building permits, is through our permitting software, GovPilot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So,
it's a feature that they offer.
so I just love all the layers in it. It's got the sewer system in it, it's got the land use violations in it.
It does.
Permit applications.
It does.
You want to find out who's been naughty or nice, it's a great place to go. So.
It's very informative, so.
Yeah, I loved it. I just wish we could come up with a better name for it so
Sure.
people would figure out to go there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of information there, including the zoning map, which is,
Absolutely.
I assume is as current as today.
It's current as of today, yes.
Yeah, so that's great.
Yes.
That's great, because that's never been there before.
Yeah.
So-
No, it's a very useful tool, so if you see something going on and you want to know, you can go onto the map, click on the parcel, see what permit's been pulled, see the write-up description. You'll get the permit number. If you want to know more details, you can call the office and get that information.
Yeah, and while we've got Ryan at the mic, your comment about housing, John, about the 38 dwelling units permitted for construction, that sounds really great, and it is, but when you look at the current need that was determined essentially county-wide or mid-coast wide, when you take it and divide out what would Rockport's share be of that need, that
Sure.
backlog of how we're coming up short currently, apparently, if I did the math right, should be on pace to do about 200 units a year. Is that about right?
I'd have to revisit what that timeline was, but it was by a certain date, we needed X number of housing.
Yeah.
So yes, by a certain date, we need around that number.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess my point is, we need to keep that pace and double it and triple it to meet the current shortage of housing in the mid-coast area. At
Not
least
not to
our
jinx
share of it.
anything, but this planning board meeting, there should be a pre-application for another subdivision. So as long as everything goes well, they'll have that submitted. And if not this month, it'll be next month. But
That's great.
So maybe we're seeing some of the impacts from the changes we've made to the land use ordinance.
We're
to try to
definitely seeing
encourage.
that. In some of the conversations, they're still fighting the hurdle of the cost of development. So they've got the cost estimates, they get their bids back, and they just shake their head. And
Yeah.
they have to readjust, so it's still
Challenge.
expensive,
Yeah,
yes.
Great.
okay. Thanks, Ryan. Anything else for John? Great. Thank you, and we're looking for a police officer, right? We've got
Yep.
2 openings, and it looks like volunteer firefighters, always looking for them. Next, we have the consent agenda, and on that, we have the CSD warrant, a committee resignation, and some meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Kim? Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 4-0. Next is the action items. And I just want to say Dave Bannister, within the consent agenda, was a resignation from Dave Bannister, who's been on the library committee. And just to thank Dave for his service and best wishes as he moves on. So next, we have act on committee applications. First up is Carter Skemp for the planning board. Carter, come on up. Yes, go ahead.
So I'm Carter Skemp. I live over on Beach Hill Road. I've been a Rockport resident for about 9 years now, I think. I'm an assistant professor of architecture at University of Maine at Augusta. I've been teaching there for about 9 years as well. I have a boat in the harbor. And I was on the planning board with John back in COVID times. We were for about a year and a half, 2 years, I think, when we were on Zoom and masked and all sorts of stuff. And so my schedule sort of shifted a bit. I saw there was an opening, and so I was interested in rejoining. I had a nice conversation with Jeff on the phone, and so here I am.
Yeah, I think everything's,
Yeah.
great application, lots of good background.
This is very exciting. Nice to have you back,
I'm not sure
Carter.
if he's qualified.
No, it was great working with Carter when I was on the planning board, and really glad to have you come back.
Yeah, and I'm excited to contribute to the town and help navigate these various pressures that go on at town
Yeah.
level, and so I'm excited to help.
Oh, we've cleaned it all up by now, yeah.
Yeah,
See,
if only I'd stayed.
Yeah, the planning board is sort of at the center of all of this, trying to
Yeah.
balance the growth, the desire for more housing, but
Yeah.
also how do we keep our town
How do you keep the town and, yeah,
feeling the
so.
way we want?
I'm really interested in that urban planning aspect of it too, and trying to figure out where density goes and where density doesn't go and where spread doesn't happen and that sort of thing. And so figuring out those aspects of it, I'm excited to take part in that.
Great.
So
Great.
Any questions for Carter?
How fast can we approve this?
Yeah. All right, it's in your hands, John.
I'll move that we approve Carter Skemp for seat on the planning board.
Okay,
I'll second it.
and Kim will second. Discussion, all those in favor? Okay, that's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
thank you so much for your
volunteering to
time.
do this.
Appreciate
and
it.
for-
yeah, I'm sure I'll see
Helping
more
us
of you
out.
soon. Yeah.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Carter.
All Next, I don't see Melanie here, is Melanie Herring has applied to basically replace Dave Bannister on the library committee. And Melanie was previously on the library committee, and then she stepped off, and now she's coming back. She has been, was the secretary on the library committee, very familiar with everything to do with the library committee. And the one unusual thing is the library committee is, it's an elected position, but because of the timing of Dave's resignation, it's within the select board's purview to appoint a replacement. And Melanie is recommended by the library committee as the replacement for Dave Bannister, and she's willing to do it, so. Seems pretty straightforward. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Kim, do we have a second?
Second.
John? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Denise, I just noticed one thing. I know we've already approved the consent agenda, so I lost some of my little crib comments in this document. I did want to point out in there, in the meeting minutes from the March 30th meeting, John, the way the format we're using to present the select board meeting minutes, it wasn't real clear to me that the 1, 2, 3, that these were the recommendations from the budget committee, and that these are our actions on those recommendations. Is that making sense?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I guess that's the way I read it, of course.
I know because we're all so close to it, but somebody coming in and looking at this is like, what is this? So it was
Can we put just a headline on it? That it's-
yeah,
Like a line at the top of it that's somewhat,
yeah, these are actions that the select
Action.
board
Oh, yeah, I
Took-
see what you're saying.
based on the recommendations
got
from
you.
the
From the
budget
budget
committee.
committee. that
Yep.
We just didn't make them up.
Sorry, I should have asked to amend the minutes, but I think it's really just a clarifying point.
I think
so
you can maybe just
you can do
clarify
that.
with,
I got you.
okay, great.
Good idea. Thank you.
Okay. All right, next is act on committee work plans. First up is Conservation Commission. We have those in the packet. I know Bill Bowe is here, but I don't want to put him on the spot. If you have any questions, I think it's, what's happened in here is we have the reference to the comprehensive plan tasks, which I think is really helpful to see. And it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, pretty thorough,
Very thorough.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I
So
wonder what
it's-
they're gonna be doing.
Yeah, with their spare time after all of this.
Jeez.
Taking care of our town, and this is an example, as Rick was talking. We have
I would
some-
love to do that.
We have some amazing volunteers on our committees, and we really appreciate the work that the Conservation Commission does, because they do things that we would otherwise be having to hire people to do and pay them, and we're very lucky as a town. So do we have a move to approve the work plan?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not so sure.
No.
All those in favor? 4-0.
It's just interesting how many of the comp plan goals ended up on the
In the
Conservation
Yeah.
Commission. I did have one thought somewhere in here. It actually, it seemed like an odd fit, and I know I should have addressed this before, but again, I lost my little crib notes. But E10 bill, it says advance opportunities to address housing needs and increase the availability of workforce housing. I was trying to figure out, why is that the Conservation Commission? So Bob, since you're right next to him, we might want to take a look at that, and it looks like it got assigned by mistake. So,
Seems like, yeah. Okay. We'll have every committee work on that, because that's probably what it's going to take to increase housing opportunities in Rockport.
yeah, I
So all
just didn't
hands
know,
on
what
deck.
would the Conservation Commission do with housing? So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Next is the Recreation Committee work plan. Is that why you're here, Jason? No, I just want to see you guys. Yeah, we just wanted to see you too. We've missed you. It's been a couple weeks.
While he's walking up there, I got a quick suggestion.
No, you had
These guys in quicker so they can go home.
I'm trying to keep the meeting moving, but not everybody's working with me on it.
Just, John, make the agenda with these guys up front.
Hi.
Hi.
So the Recreation Committee work plan, looks pretty straightforward. Anybody have questions for Jason on that?
The only question I have, and you guys have heard this from me before, which is, it's becoming clear to me that the Recreation Committee is really just Marge Jones Fields, right?
At
So
this point,
Do you
when
ever-
I was tasked or asked to task with this, it was to get a group to get the Marge Jones Field back to where it is. The members on this board, I would say 100% are there for Marge Jones
Yeah.
and no other things in the community.
Yeah, but you're not gonna be involved with, say, the Lesher, the Rockport Common Fields or anything like that, so,
I'm looking at John. No, I'm shaking my head. No, I'm just.
well,
waiting
I
to
think
see.
that's a different discussion at a different,
well, I'm just seeing that the current Recreation Committee has got a, very sharp focus, and I'm not disagreeing with it at all, I'm just saying it's a little misleading to call it the Recreation Committee at this point.
Perhaps
So
changed.
well,
maybe
at
we
this
just
point,
call
that's
the
our
name.
only
It's our only rec.
recreation.
It's only rec location.
It's true that with the Rockport Common, once that's done and in place, we then have some other fields and,
All right,
Yeah, maybe we can
I'll
address
address that
that
when it
later.
happens.
yep, yep. Okay, this looks pretty straightforward. Good stuff happening out there. Season's starting to,
It's a
We
very-
opened the gate today. I'm gonna cover this up.
yeah.
We did open the gate today. The road is decent. The grasses, the fields are actually really dried out except for the dirt playing surfaces. We are full. I brought a colored calendar. We are full all the way through the end of June with at least 3 groups playing every single night. The fields are booked 3:30 to about 8 o'clock for the next 2.5 months straight. So between T-ball, Little League softball, Little League baseball, the high school JV teams playing there every single day from 3:30 to 5. High school tennis teams playing there every single day on the tennis courts from 3:30 to 5. Pitch is utilizing the fields every Sunday. Little League goes obviously Saturdays as well. It's booked up solid. We have co-ed softball that's coming in again this year. We have ultimate frisbee. We have basketball clinics. Yeah, it's the busiest we've ever seen. It's going to be a crazy year. Babe Ruth baseball when they get their schedule in. So it's with RES site closing, it's definitely gonna change the looks over there.
Yeah, we'll have another year before that's able to offer any relief.
Yep.
It does seem like, we've talked and we will talk about regionalization later, but this is a regional recreational facility,
It's used
right?
by everybody.
Yeah, not just Rockport residents,
Correct.
not just, and I wonder if over time we find ways to try to help share some of those costs of running
mean,
it. I'm not,
It's
tonight's
gonna be
not
hard
the
just
night.
because other towns have it as well. I mean, Hope has True Park that is utilized for Little League at times. Pickleball, same thing. The school in Lincolnville is used for co-ed softball, Little League, and the same thing up there. So every town has its kind of own complex or setup. It just depends on the level.
Yeah, yep. So that's sort of a bigger discussion for a different group of people, but is
Yeah.
there something more regionally to be done? Well, thank you for all the good work. Do we have a motion to approve the Recreation Committee
So
work plan?
moved.
Kim,
second,
John? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Good.
4-0. Great.
Might as well stay right there.
so,
That's why I'm
Yeah,
not
moving
moving.
right along.
I'm not moving.
yeah, the only other question is, we had some goals that from the comp plan that we were going to assign to the Recreation Committee, but because you guys are so exclusive to Marge Jones, we've got to find a new home for them.
Bob attended the meeting and I felt bad. I wasn't aware of what they were doing. And when he started talking, everybody in the room was kind of like, what is this about? So when he started talking about pathways and this, I was like, don't want to be rude, but this group that's here, and they all agreed that they're only there for Marge Jones. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was,
Well, yeah, okay. Oh,
And it was a very dedicated group, I gotta say, from my first time being there.
Well, and for anybody to see what it was before you took it on with what it looks like now, it maybe takes that level of single focus of a group of dedicated volunteers.
Picking away.
Yeah, yeah. Before we move on to Jason, we've got the Parks and Beautification Committee work plan. And we had that work plan in front of us before, and then we asked them to go back in and incorporate the comprehensive plan tasks, which they've done, and that's what we have in front of us tonight, is that original work plan, but now they've added in the comprehensive plan items. Bob came to their meeting, and I think that was really helpful for them to understand. We have some new people on the Parks Committee who were excited about some of these tasks, so I think it's all good. Do we have a motion to approve the Parks Committee work plan?
So moved.
Okay, John,
Second.
Michael. Any discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Great. Okay. Next, we have act on fire department services restitution policy updates.
If I could, real quick, Denise.
Yeah.
I do want to say thank you very much to Rick Mitchell for the comment. The volunteers definitely appreciate hearing comments from people in the community. It does make a big difference. It is a volunteer group. Yes, they do get paid, but they all have full-time jobs. They all take pay cuts when they come to these calls. Since I started, it was 140 calls. We're almost at 300 calls a year now, so our volume's gone through the roof. But I do want to assure you, Rick, that the volunteers are the main focus of the fire department. The fire trucks do not roll out the door with any full-time people. The full-time people are there strictly for EMS. They do help with fire, but the fire trucks don't roll unless it's the Gregs, the Levi's, the Clays. So my crew's 100% on board and understands that the fire department doesn't exist without them. So we're fortunate. We have a few new members. We're up to 26 members right now, just volunteer and plus the 8 full-time. So we are holding strong, but again, you have your come and goes, so it could still change at any time. But we are doing pretty good right now. Granted, 6 of them or 7 of them will all be gone starting Thursday in Florida, Alabama, here, there, and everywhere. So West Rockport is on vacation next week.
No fires next week?
Yeah, we're gonna hold off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody can
fires, no
hold off
truck
on their fires.
rollovers.
Yeah.
Yep, everybody
Yeah.
be safe for the
So
next
thank
week.
you, Rick, very much.
Yeah, and thank you to all our volunteer firefighters, because we do
I'll
appreciate.
reopen your burn permits. You can burn again.
Yeah. Yeah, and we do, I'm not sure any of them are watching, but we should always make sure they understand that we appreciate all the work they do for us and the risks they take for us. It's a dangerous job. So,
They have a wicked team.
yeah,
You don't get a team unless you get a bunch of people that like each other.
right, with good leadership. I mean, I think to Jason's credit, he's been able to really form that into a group with a lot of camaraderie, and Rockport is better off because of it.
It's definitely a unique group of men and women that, on and off duty, we hang out a lot, and I think that's key. Is we do things together outside of the fire department, and that's what keeps us strong. So, it is one heck of a group for sure.
Great. Well, thank you. We're lucky. All right. John, Jason, who wants to tell us about what this,
Which one are we on
the
first?
Fire Department Services Restitution Policy Update?
So we've had a restitution policy. I don't remember what year it was. Eric Walker was still here. I don't know how many years ago that was. So the fire department teamed up with Cost Recovery out of Fairfield. Union had been doing this. So any type of car accident or any type of criminal activity that the fire department gets called out for, we can send a bill for restitution to help cover the cost of that call. If you are a resident of Rockport and you are involved in an accident, we will not charge you. However, if it's criminal, then theoretically we would. We haven't got to that, thank God. But over the years, it's been the first year I think we did it, we were a little over $11,000 in restitution from car accidents. So really the only big change in the policy you see in front of us is we added the ambulance. We didn't have an ambulance last time. We didn't have an ambulance at the time. And we didn't have paramedics. So we've added that cost in there. So, for example, the tanker rollover, that ambulance had to stand by as well as the paramedics, so there was a cost to that. So we've added that in there. On that same line, we had extrication, we removed it out of there, it was $500 for extrication, and we put it into the type 4, which is the $1,500 total. So we just, it's not a big change, we just added 2 new features that we have, which again is the ambulance and the paramedic.
And the compensation, is that something like $45 an hour for a paramedic?
Yep.
I'm assuming we're paying our paramedics more than that.
No.
We're not.
No, they're under
Well,
that.
not
Well,
inclusive of benefits.
if you're
and
just
the like,
strictly
just-
hourly, they are lower than that.
Well, that's just,
Right,
that's,
benefits, we're not, just
We don't-
pay, it's lower. But if you include benefits and everything, I don't know what that number is, that's a Megan question, I wouldn't.
And are we allowed to seek restitution for what it actually costs us for these employees, or are there sort of ways that it's capped?
You can set any price you want. This company, I can't remember, it's a massive spreadsheet of departments that take place in this. There are some departments that have one line and it's $500 period for everything. There's some that have 60 different things out there. We worked with a company to say, what would you recommend for rates? Too high, insurance companies will fight you till the end, where if you're too low, you're not. So we picked a middle road
Okay.
with that pricing. The good thing for us is we do no legwork. The crew up there have access to our reporting system. Once a month, she logs in, every car accident, she downloads it, she gets the police report, and she handles 100% of it. We do nothing.
who is
They get-
she? Who is she?
Cost recovery, Amy Weber's our representation.
Is she like a third-party billing?
Yeah, they're the ones that do all the legwork and they do all of it.
Yep.
You gotta go?
Maybe. So anyways, they do all the legwork, they pull the police reports, they're the ones that work with the insurance company, they're the ones that go back after the insurance company. So it's a 20% fee that we pay, we don't pay. So if there's a car accident and it's $1,000, they get 200, we get 800, but again, we do no work. So Union has been doing this for several years prior to us, and they've been very successful. Just for example, the tanker truck rollover could be upwards of $8,000 restitution for that time. So
That's great.
it can be profitable. It's,
Or at least
it's
helps
another
us.
revenue source for us.
Right.
Not
Helps
many
us
departments
recover some
doing
of
it.
our-
I do know Chief Wytalk has been doing research with us, and he's there. I think they're going to be doing it as well.
Okay.
So Rockland's doing it, Union's doing it, and I don't know of anybody else in this area.
Is the idea to just essentially bill insurance companies? So
Yes.
you're not really billing the individuals that are,
No. There are times the individual gets a bill, but as we explained to them, that's your insurance company's responsibility, not yours.
but if they're not a Rockport resident, can we bill, or would we bill them? Or
That's who
would-
we are. We don't bill Rockport residents, is what you had said earlier.
Right. Rockport residents, if you're in an accident and it's your fault, we're not gonna send anything to your insurance company because you're a resident. You're already paying for us to do it. Where if you're a non-resident, you're involved in an accident, they go through, they do the pricing and they send it to the insurance company. It does not go to the person. When it goes to the person, that's a whole different level that none of the agencies around here do right now.
So, okay, so that if there isn't an insurance company involved, we're not gonna
Correct.
do any billing, okay. And you said we had how many events last year that we were? able
I don't know
to-
the exact number on what we did last year.
But ballpark, is it like
We were-
10% or 20% or?
Well, we did 50-something car accidents, so I don't know how many of those were billable.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to get a sense, is it a significant number or is it
I mean,
kind of?
it's in that anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 range of
I was thinking it
revenue.
was about 11,000 in the
Yeah,
budget.
I mean, it also depends on the severity. I mean, if I go to a fender bender and we're there for 10 minutes, it's gonna be a minimal call. Where you go to a tanker truck rollover or
Yeah.
extrication, now you're upwards of $3,000, $4,000. Anything hazardous material, it increases it. So it just depends on the severity.
Yeah, okay.
Well, great. I mean, I'm glad we're doing that, and it sounds like really what we're acting on tonight is just you've sort
Just
of increased
the
the paramedic.
modifications,
and-
yep.
Yep.
So we've always had this.
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah,
3
But
years?
I wanna say
Yeah.
2019.
I think it was later than that, because we,
I think it was.
Later?
I think it
Yeah.
was later.
Yeah.
It was
Was
only been
it?
a
We
few
did,
years.
yeah,
because
and
we,
Because I think we adopted it when I came on the board.
yeah,
that's right.
just a couple years
Yeah.
ago.
I mentioned it in the packet that it was initially approved in
2023,
Yeah.
December.
Yeah,
Seems like it's longer than that.
time flies.
It was done at the outset of the conversation on EMS, and you found
Yeah.
this at the same time, and so it was brought forward as, well, there's a number of ways we can recover costs, and we
Yeah.
need to think about revenues as well as expenditures, and
We had been successful in a few others. I mean, we had the, back when Burger King was open, which was a long time ago, and that tractor trailer rolled over on 17. We were there for 4 hours, and I mean, we recovered, I think it was like $6,800 on that one, so.
Well, it's the right thing to be
Well, it's-
doing, especially with Rockport being on such a crossroads with all the
Especially no
traffic.
transports.
Yep.
It helps offset
Yeah.
those.
exactly.
So, I move we accept the updated restitution policy
Do we have a
for the fire
second?
department.
Second?
John? Any further discussion? All those in favor? 4-0.
Got distracted by the
I know.
lights.
I saw the
Shiny
flashing
lights.
lights.
Things are working without Jason. Okay. Next, act on mutual aid agreement between Rockport Fire Department and Penn Bay Hospital in response to hazardous waste contingency plan.
You wanna talk about it, Jason? You wanna,
I mean, is police departments in here too tonight?
right after, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I've got
the-
both of them on here.
With Maine Help, they're just asking that we just agree to a mutual aid that if they have some type of a hazardous incident that we respond. We're already gonna do that now. They just need an agreement for it. So we're already going to all the calls there. They did send me a quick list of what they have there, just so you're aware. It's just biohazard material, blood products mostly, chem waste, propane, and heating oil is all they have there. Anything hazmat, we're gonna clear the area and we're gonna pull back, and the hazmat team's gonna come from Waterville. That's the closest hazmat team now to our area, would come out of Waterville. So there's nothing we're gonna do except for evacuate and stand back.
Okay.
So it's just a basic agreement that Penn Bay needed
Scene
for.
safe. Can't
Yeah.
cover it with your thumb, it's
Yeah.
too close.
Too close. Back up. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Kim?
Second.
John? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
And I believe, John, PD's is the exact same thing. so
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's-
It is.
so
it's
we
theirs
just
is the
move
same
right
thing.
on to that, and we don't, Chris
So-
isn't here, but
Same
do we
idea.
have a motion to
Different
approve?
color vehicle.
Kim approves it. Is there a second?
Second.
John? Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, great.
Go save the world.
4-0. Yep. Okay. Now we're at the act on the annual town meeting warrant for the June 2026 election.
So we have a total of 7 articles on the warrant to be considered. 3 articles, well, one article was to elect a moderator, which obviously happens every year. And you have to have that to do a special town meeting. There's Article 2, which is all of the secret ballot elections for positions. And then beginning with Article 3 is when the items that would be on the ballot for consideration of the articles. So Article 3 is an amendment to the zoning map in accordance with the 2025 comprehensive plan. Article 4 is amendments to the subdivision ordinance. Article 5 are amendments to the land use ordinance. Article 6 is the expenditures for the town, for the budget for FY '27. Article 7 are the revenues for the budget for FY '27. And that's it. It's a fairly,
So, do we need to?
And we
these-
vote on each one, right?
Each one, correct?
yeah, so what I would ask is that you would make a motion to approve the warrant, and then we would subsequently go through and place votes for each
So
item.
the overarching vote is first, and then we do,
If, unless there were amendments that you had to the language, which usually you don't have in this case.
I don't think we have any. 'cause
No,
we
there,
don't have the land
there's
use
just a couple of
ordinance language.
typos in there, John, that I think are significant. Down under the budget areas, you've got, Budget Committee recommends 7 for, 1 against, 0 against.
Yep, there you
So-
go.
And then you do the same thing in the
On the revenues.
revenue side.
And would
So-
you say 0 abstains?
Yeah, it should be abstain, not,
Yeah. Yeah.
not 2 against.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah, and the same thing on the revenues.
Revenue, it looks like it was a pickup of probably a typo that's been there for
Yeah.
years.
We probably,
Oh, gee.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so I move-
okay, so.
So I move to approve the warrant for June 2026 election as amended.
June 9? Do you need to say June 9?
Can't hurt.
Is that the date, June 9th?
Yeah, June 9 is,
Okay,
yeah.
I was just reading the sentence.
Yeah, reading
I move to approve the warrant for June 9th, 2026 election as amended.
Second.
Second, John. Any discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Okay. Okay, now let's take our votes for each of the articles that we need to take votes on.
So we start with 3, correct?
Yeah, Article 3, shall the
Well,
town?
Article 1, can I just pause for a minute?
Okay,
Since we don't really have a town meeting anymore, John, what does Article 1 really mean?
still have to
You
have.
do elect a moderator.
But what is that moderator actually, there's no function for a moderator.
So the secret ballot, which is effectively the election, is considered part of the town meeting. And so the moderator does have a role in the same way if you had if you had an open town meeting and you had a moderator who was managing the proceedings of that. It's a little bit easier when it's all secret ballot, right? But in an elections case, they are helping to manage the polls.
Is the moderator over at the library during
Yep.
the course of the election
Yep,
day?
that's right. So I believe Rebecca usually is in that role. She's also has served as a warden in the past. They're both in effectively in the roles of management of the election. The warden is a state ballot issue, and a moderator is a local ballot issue. But in either case, they're in charge.
So do we suggest Rebecca as the moderator in the warrant?
No,
or-
we don't.
No.
We let all
that
that
gets
is up
elected
to
that way.
Liz and the clerk.
So there's no election for the moderator then?
There is an election,
Well-
so she'll find the person that she wants to have help run the election, and that
Okay.
person is the
Is
moderator.
elected.
Okay.
Now, there has been, I mean, it's potentially you could run for the position and hang around for 12 hours while the voting goes on, but that could, usually that doesn't happen.
All right.
Okay, so Article 3, shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport Land Use Ordinance zoning map in accordance with the 2025 comprehensive plan?
Except I make
Should
a
we-
motion to approve.
Do we need a motion to approve, or do we
You
just
can just
take
do
votes?
for,
okay.
against,
Okay,
abstain.
are we,
All in favor?
Michael? Okay, so we're all in favor, 4-0 for that one. 4 and 0 against, 0 abstain. Okay, Article 4, shall the town adopt amendments to the Rockport subdivision ordinance? Vote on that, 4-0. Article 5, shall the town adopt amendments to the Rockport land use ordinance regarding chapters 300, 800, 900, and 1300? 4-0.
Yeah, just if I could interject, again, I want to thank Orion for all his work on the ordinances. There was a lot of cleanup, a lot of work done on this by both Orion's as a town staff, but also the planning board. A lot of meetings and a lot of conversation represented by these changes. So,
Article 6. Do I need to read all the? I can do it. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following expenditures for the 2026-2027 fiscal year. A, administration, $70,490. B, town manager, $453,375. C, town clerk, $437,000. Planning and community development, $469,641. Finance, $382,200. Assessing, $268,860. Insurance, $128,775. General assistance, $11,330. Police department, $1,363,081. Fire department, $806,381. Emergency medical services, $1,278,300. Other public safety services, $270,230. Animal control, $12,900. Harbor master, $309,985. Emergency management, $11,450. Public works, $3,170,753. Sanitation, $171,485. Buildings and grounds, $408,793. Town office building, $215,985. Public safety building, $42,425. West Rockport Fire Station, $41,550. Long-term debt, $685,057. Library, $630,670. Parks, $127,118. Opera House, $236,200. Recreation, $133,412. Conservation Commission, $11,750. Cemeteries, $161,636. County Service, E911, $119,718. County Service Dispatch, $58,982. Special Assessments, $6,800. That's a total budget of, total expenditures of $12,476,332. Okay, so vote. 4-0. And a lot of work obviously went into coming up with all those numbers. As John indicated earlier, a lot of thought went into each of these departments and these final expenditure numbers. And we'll vote on revenues. Now is Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following as revenue from the following sources to be used in reducing the property tax assessment for the 2026-2027 fiscal year. General government, $1,771,164. Public assistance, $7,700. Public safety, $771,556. Public services, $81,300. Culture and recreation, $180,050. All other cemeteries, $100,071. Schools, $93,750. Unassigned fund balance, $320,000. Special assessments, $790,000, for total revenues of $4,115,591. Okay, vote on that. Acceptance of the revenues, that's a 4-0. Okay. And obviously, the budget is the net between the expenditures and the revenues. So we're a little over $8 million. And as John indicated, that's a less than right around a 0.5% decrease in the town budget from last year. So well done, Budget Committee, which, we can see the votes here as well for Budget Committee. All right. That is our town meeting warrant for June 2026. That'll be available on absentee ballots and when people go in person to vote at the library, so. Next, act on notice of payment of excess sale proceeds for 54 Beach Hill.
All right, sorry to have to bring this one back before you. A bill came through in between when y'all signed it last and March 11th, which I wasn't expecting. I was told we weren't gonna have any more bills with 54 Beach, but one came through. So this is the total balance for that account. For y'all to re-sign, then we can update it in Knox County Registry of Deeds and cut the check.
Okay. And this is just necessitated by the state law that says when we foreclose on property, we are allowed to recover all of our costs, pay out all outstanding bills, but then the net proceeds go back to the homeowner.
That's right.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the notice of payment of excess sale proceeds for 54 Beach Hill as presented.
Okay, Kim?
Second.
Second,
Second.
John? Any discussion? All those in favor? Great. 4-0. Okay, thanks, Ryan. Next is to act on quitclaim deed for map T01, lot A06-047 for Shannon Hopkins. And as I understand this, this is, we're trying, within a 30-day period, if we've gone into automatic foreclosure, there's still an opportunity for the homeowner to reclaim their property.
Yep.
Do they pay costs to do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, they
so
pay.
We're made whole.
We're made whole, we're current with this, and this record as well as the next one after it. So
Okay.
otherwise they wouldn't be back before you.
Okay.
Still own it.
Okay. I move to approve the quitclaim deed for map T01, lot A06-047 for Shannon Hopkins as presented.
Okay.
Second?
Second, Kim. Any discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Great. And the next one is same, just different property. So can we have a motion?
I move to approve the quitclaim deed for map T02, lot A01-014 for Nancy Arnold and Brenda Martin as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Second, Michael. Any discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Great. Okay. All right, that's our action items for tonight. And we'll move on to the amended agenda items for the discussion item. Maybe let's start with the policy on a butter notification and just understand what we do for a butter notification. And I think, I guess we're probably catching John a little cold on this topic, but if you know what you, and I don't know if Orion has something to chip in, it's also something, if we don't know the answers tonight, the other option is to make sure it's on our agenda for next month with all the information, so we're making, so we have a basis to understand what we are doing and whether we're doing enough, should we do more?
Yeah, I think I can lay at least a basis of what we do now.
Okay, perfect.
And then, if that's something that maybe turns into something that becomes a policy or however, where the conversation goes. But in fact, there's no formal distinction as to when abutters are notified of a given project in an area. And also, for that matter, there is also the question of what would be a trigger, right? Of when is considered a project as opposed to when is it that someone is ditching in front of someone's house. So you have a broad base there that you're working out of. Where you have situations like this, it's largely been the Public Works Director who looks at the circumstance that where a project is going to occur, where potentially there may be concerns. And of course, in Mike, we have someone who's been in the position a long time and certainly knows when calls come in and where concerns come from. And so when you are working in an area where there are people who will be particularly mindful of what work is occurring on the street front, that's certainly an area where his antenna are up and he's, more aware. And certainly given what the project may call for in a given area, if there's, more intense involvement in a particular section of a project, that's the situation often results in a knock on the door from Mike and a conversation with a homeowner. That's really the door-to-door, person-to-person approach has really been the way that the Public Works Department has operated over time. You may recall, Michael, there was a number of issues on your street, and there was, some concerns about water going into a backyard near you, and so that comes into a homeowner, a walk into the backyard, and so forth and so on. So it's been, I think, informal probably isn't the right way to put it, but I think informal is certainly in the conversation of what we're talking about here. It's been case by case and when the circumstance seems to call for it, but nothing that oh, this is the trigger, this is the project cost perhaps, this is, there hasn't been anything that sort of sets a demarcation point of, okay, the project has reached this level, therefore we're gonna go upwards and above. There have been conversations with, when Gartley and Dorsey's involved, and you have a project that's planned to this degree, where potentially the engineering firm actually will hold the meeting, where they'll actually host it, and they'll take the feedback and incorporate that into their design. Now, I haven't seen that here. I worked with Gartley and Dorsey on a project in Newcastle, fairly strong rebuild of a road that was very impactful for the neighbors. And it was a beneficial process, but I can tell you, having gone through the other end of it, there were those who showed up to every meeting, registered concerns, and then, you know, seemingly some of the decisions that made were not necessarily as didn't come to mind as quickly when the digging was happening in front of their house. So it's a challenge, right? You have to try to.
I don't understand what you mean.
What I mean is that there were agreements as to, okay, we're gonna do this and
Do it
walk
this
away.
way, and it's
Yes, and then when the actual work is before the homeowner, some of that agreements were forgotten.
The homeowners are
Yeah,
like, wait,
because they're not engineers, they're not, you know, architects, they're not, you know, landscape architects, they're really just trying to represent their own issues and their own concerns rightly. And so it's, you know, there's concerns about speed and signage, and those things can go quite well in that process. But it's, unfortunately, not every process can be fixed by a neighborhood meeting, but it can solve a lot of problems. And I think in, you know, the situation we're talking about with Warrenton, it can go a long way to answer a lot of concerns. I think the other aspect of this is really the Pathways Committee. And where does the Pathways Committee fit into this? Now, certainly, in large part, many of the concerns that are often, and really the initial concerns in many cases, are what's gonna happen with the sidewalk that's in front of my house? What's gonna happen with, you know, how do we deal with parking? How do we deal with, and those are issues that sort of intersect with pathways, some pathways concerns. So, you know, there are some avenues in which this draft Complete Streets policy can sort of help to socialize some of the plans of these projects and incorporate residents into their planning well before, you know, you get to this late date. I don't think this circumstance is a good representation of that, because certainly it's further down the road. Well, I think that's also indicative of how far we have to go to try to set some expectations as to what people can expect for feedback and what that would be. So I think there's a lot of ways you can go with this. I think I think we just have to figure out what is that threshold, what feels like the right place for, because brush cutting on Vinyl Street may not necessarily trigger that threshold, but a stormwater collection plan on Warrenton does, right? So trying to define that line is important if a policy is really where you'd want to go.
I'm a little bit concerned, because in this Warrenton Street project itself, like I said earlier, it's been a couple of years, this has been in the works, right? But it seems to me that the fact that the Pathways Committee kind of at the last minute kind of came into it, like, let's see if we can incorporate this. Most people are thinking, oh, the Pathways Committee is just screwed up, and they were gonna have stuff done and have this big pathway built wherever for no notice. Has there been any advance notice? Say if the Pathways Committee was not in this situation, for this particular project with the road and the drainage, is there any public notice that was given for something like that?
I don't think
I
we
mean,
typically do that.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Like, I get notices from Maine Water if they gotta flush the water lines,
Well,
you
that's
know.
because you're gonna turn your tap on and it's gonna be.
Right, but
You're affected.
with these others, there are people that gotta have their front yards torn up, and they don't know why. So this is my question, like,
Right.
I would have
But that's not
expected,
accurate. I mean, I think that's part of
Well,
the reason.
well, the right of way or whatever.
We're trying to talk about the policy here. so
Yeah,
let's
that's
not
what I'm
get
trying to
bogged
figure
down
too,
in
is
it.
like, is there a policy
No,
that,
that's what I
So-
just said, no.
so there's
So-
no policy? I'm just surprised that there's nothing.
No, and I'll say the the other towns I worked in,
Yeah.
hasn't been a policy either. This is, like I said, you need to tell me what the threshold is, right?
You have the case by, I mean, if you go on into West Rockport, you know, the houses are set way back from where the road is. So
Right.
is the policy gonna be region-specific within the town? Do you say if the houses are closer than this close to the, you know, how do you come up with?
I guess my instinct would be that no matter where I lived, if there was gonna be bulldozers coming and re-ditching or whatever
The
along,
road.
along my edge of my property, even though my house is 1,000 feet back in the road, or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, I would have assumed that, oh, there's gonna be ditching done along this street, and we want all the property owners to know there's gonna be ditching done, because it might impact just their daily life for a few minutes, you know?
When we do inform, well, go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's certainly something that, in my report, we're always talking about where we're working, what we're doing, how we're
Right.
doing it.
And that's what Civic Alert does.
Right.
Yes, so if there were impacts that were going to be an issue where someone couldn't get out, or we were going to have to close a road, that's where we have an alert system to let people know, hey, this is happening, be cautious of this area, or what have you. We also, when we're working in areas where we had one, we're working on a one-way road, so we're going door to door to let everyone know, hey, this is the situation today, we're replacing the culvert, you know, do you need to move your car, do you need to do, so there,
So it's
those conversations are occurring. I think this is a little bit of a different circumstance, because I think it's a threshold of impact, you know, of, okay, we're working in the right of way, okay, we're working in where the town owns property. There's certainly a different impression as to what I think I own versus what
Yeah.
says on the map here. That's okay, there's nothing wrong with that, there's a way to talk that through. But that's why you send out a notice to say, hey, this is where we're working, if you have questions, to work through it. I think this is one where you clearly send a notice, and that's why we did 2 weeks
did.
ago.
Right.
But I think there's another question of, like, the step below that, we're gonna, you know, brush cutting. Is brush cutting, I would say no, necessarily,
Yeah,
that's sort of vegetation management. Ditching, probably yes, you know, but so those are I'm not saying there's a right and wrong answer, I'm just saying, to your point, if I lived 1,000 feet off the road, maybe I would wanna know that, right?
Or,
It's really hard to pinpoint. 'cause,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah,
like
but
Main
I,
Street, we did all the work on Main Street. I knew it because I'm here, but I also get the text alerts and. So I didn't get a specific letter to me saying, hey, we're doing work on Main Street, but,
that's kind of what I'm wondering too. Like,
Yeah.
I know this civic alert is very handy, but a small portion of people actually signed up
Right.
for that.
The problem is if you add another layer, now how many different layers do people have to check?
I'm just wondering, like.
Yeah,
is
I'm
there
just saying,
anything-
like, you have to like sort of funnel people through, this is the official source, right? Or not, right? That's the easiest way to do it.
Depending on, and I don't know what the threshold should be, but I just would have assumed that if you get to a certain point in disruption or just whatever, that there would be a written notice mailed to the people. So they would see that, and then a backup would be, you know, a civic alert.
No, and that's what happened here. I mean, that John's instincts
Yeah.
were right.
yeah, but,
And
you
this,
know, we were way late to the party
Yeah.
on this one, come on, you know.
yeah, this was
Well,
just,
Farley,
this happened because
It got
Farley,
expedited.
Right.
Right,
project.
but-
but how do we not, how do we just let Farley, and I'm glad they're doing it.
Yeah.
But from the public's perception, I can see them going, well, you didn't know more than 2 weeks in advance, we didn't know.
Yeah, I guess,
I'm
This
being
is
an
I mean, it's a
advocate.
tough one because it
or-
was planned for fall, but then they're like, "Ooh, we can't do it.
Yeah.
right, and that's
then
understandable.
We'll plan it
But-
for
yes.
spring, and they're like, we can do it now.
Could we have avoided the situation we're in?
Well, I guess the question is, what is the situation we're in?
We're in the situation where
Yeah.
everyone along Warrenton Street is pissed. Basically.
Okay,
And that's partly because they have some misinformation based
Yeah,
on what
right.
I've read. They're-
Because we haven't communicated.
Well, we did.
we found out the work would be done and we sent a letter. What would we have done differently? I guess is the
And
sort of the
maybe
policy
letter
that
could have
John sort
gone
of
out
draw out.
sooner. We tell
Well,
Farley, sorry, you can't start.
No, no, no. But the people seem to be upset thinking about the pathway and all this other stuff, and whatever notice was given hasn't satisfied their curiosity.
Okay.
Fair?
I don't know what
The
they.
Well, I mean, we
notice
had
was
people
given
come here
at the
today.
same time
Yeah, but I
flags
don't know
are
if they've
showing up
read-
in their front
Yeah.
yard, which is too late.
Right.
I mean, that's just clearly too late. I don't know who would think that was sufficient notice. So, because it scares people.
Well, no one's saying that's sufficient notice. I wouldn't say that there was a plan, that would suggest that there was a plan in terms of when flagging went out as opposed to
No,
letter.
I'm just
None
saying.
of that occurred.
Saying
We
it was,
got
it was
caught.
like we were late to the party on that.
Okay,
But I keep hearing that basically, I think it's pretty straightforward. Yes, there's gonna be gray areas, but if you're talking about disturbing soil even that's abutting somebody's property or getting close to their property line, you'd at least could send a letter by the time you know you're gonna be disturbing soil, you're what, couple months out?
sometimes less, sometimes it's,
Right.
I mean,
But in this case,
yeah,
well,
goal would be
there
that.
seems to be you could probably map out sort of some tiers here of
that's what I'm saying.
level 1,
Yes.
2, 3, 4,
Yes.
and then just how far do you go?
Right,
The planning board, if you're a private property and you want to, you want to change something on your land, you have to alert the abutters, and that's part of our ordinance for, private properties in town. So there's already a ordinance in place and a practice in place by virtue of the ordinance that, I'm not saying we have to be that specific, but, we do have a, we do have a requirement in the ordinance when notices have to be given out, the town should try to walk its own talk to some degree. That's all I'm saying, and give people an assurance that if something's gonna happen, you're gonna hear from us
Well,
if
I think
it's
we
at a
just-
certain level.
We have to be careful. I mean, there's a lot of competing interests here, and I'm not defending, I don't have enough information, but, I'm hearing that a letter was sent out door to door, people were contacted door to door. Now, I also hear that 75% of those people don't live here in the winter. Well, I don't know what you do. I mean, you send a letter, so if their tax address is correct, they're gonna get the letter. But if they're not in town, living here, Mike can go out and he's talking to the individuals. That's the best opportunity to sort of explain what's happening, and that these flags are just marking a property boundary, they're not marking the project.
Well, all right, wait, well, if you wanna go into the
Because
Warrington
we
project,
have a contract with Farley
specifically.
that we're trying to get this done. and
but
a
when
bid.
did Farley's have the plans to bid on the project?
the plans were
It
created
was
last
supposed to
summer.
get done last fall.
Yeah,
Did anybody know, was any letter sent out saying, hey, there's a plan that something's gonna get moved
no,
around and,
but John, that's like saying we have plans, we're working with Woodard and Curran to try to talk about Route 90 sewer that we talked about. I mean, there's a line there of when does it actually become ready and when is it actually actionable, as opposed to when it becomes something that's more than a plan. And I think that's where I'm trying to figure out is that threshold of, okay, this is where we think what the line is. Right, and I think, and I don't disagree with you that there's levels to this that could be very impactful. I don't think the land use ordinance is the trigger, though, because I think, as you and I talked about, that's not the same.
yeah,
You
no,
know,
I'm
we're not applicable
I'm
in
not
that
trying to
same
get
way.
in the way of, running an efficient public works
Yeah.
department or anything like
And
that,
that's the
but
risk if
I'm
we-
really just trying to, assure people that, if it's the road and out your front window,
Right,
you're gonna have a little bit of a heads up. You can count on us to give you a little bit of heads up.
and I think that's entirely reasonable. I'm just saying, just if there's an idea that there's a threshold, whether it's earth moving, or if it's brush cutting, or if it's tree trimming, there's always gonna be a line, and I would say every landowner has a different line. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of residents who are in there who all have different lines of what they think that is.
Sure, but we should-
We have people in that neighborhood whose front doorstep is crossed by that boundary.
Right.
Okay, and
The
that's,
town right of
the
way.
town right of way crosses their front door. So that's a concern that it means, and if they have expectations, we're sort of dealing with an expectations game. To John's point, I think we want to try to meet those expectations ahead of it. And I think that's a good plan. I just want to make sure the four of you, or whatever that threshold is something that you can say, okay, we felt it's here. And when the next person comes and say, well, they cut a tree in that right away.
Right. I don't wanna get.
I know, but for some people, trees are a bigger deal than the earth moving.
True.
Just saying.
True. Now, Mike, I have one question here. The project apparently we were thinking they were gonna do it in the fall. We were hoping Farrell was gonna do it in the fall.
Right.
With that being the initial plan or hope, was any announcement given to the people along that street, like, hey, here's a
No.
projected date for this?
We didn't
To
have
be
a
done.
date. We didn't have
Or-
a date at that point.
or-
No.
Well, we knew in the fall. I guess, and I'm just,
No, we didn't.
I'm
I'm
just
just
open-
That's what I'm saying.
then we're hoping.
We got the bids.
Okay.
The bid says no. We can't do this.
okay, okay.
That's why. it
Okay, so
didn't-
we
It wasn't the
knew,
fall.
Yes.
Okay,
So
okay,
then the
okay.
question is, what does the project change? Is the Pathways Committee, if this Complete Streets is coming together at the same time, let's put them to work and actually try to make this happen. And
That's
they
what
got
we
some
were trying
things done. They got some recommendations through. I don't necessarily agree with your statement earlier to say that there were recommendations that were part of the letter. But regardless of that, I think what's happened now is that we now have a record where we have a plan, we've circulated the plan, there are a number of people who were here tonight and we've been talking with, who have received full copies of the design set that went out to Gartley and from Gartley to all the bidders. There's a number of people who have the full record of what's there. There's some who don't, and those people we're still trying to connect with, and we still need to have meetings with. And there needs to be an opportunity for those people to get together. And I think, as I'm just sort of talking this out, I think there's a level of, if you're gonna have a project of a certain level, there is a community meeting regardless, okay? We're all gonna meet if the project, and I'm not sure what that threshold is, but that's if the houses are so close, or I don't know what it is. But there's something there where you can say, okay, this is where you can try to capture everyone in one spot. You can have it on the website. This is where you can see where the information is, and then you can provide your feedback within a certain period of time. What we can't do is, and I think the challenge that the board has is, the 4 or 5 of you to manage a project from up here is next to impossible,
And not our job.
right? And it's
It's not our job.
Well, to that point, John, I would just like to add, and I want you to just restate for me an answer to a question I gave you before, because
Yeah.
it's relevant.
yeah,
The road work we're doing,
yeah.
if there was no conversation about anything from the Pathways Committee, that road would be the exact same road. As
far as I know.
Putting in, the same width.
Yeah, yes.
Same way.
Pavement's
So
not
what's,
changing.
I hear everybody getting tripped up on is this notion of a pathway.
Mm-hmm.
What we're really doing is creating a bike lane on the road.
It's a stripe.
It's a stripe.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
stripe.
right.
It's not a separate pathway. It's a stripe. And I think everybody's getting hung up on this.
except that sidewalk piece being torn out confuses it.
Well, that was gonna come out anyway.
Right, but
Because
then-
we had to
so
put the
that would be
road
paved.
in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was gonna be paved.
It's a paved sidewalk anyway that's crumbling.
Right.
So it's
So-
just making the walking area.
Cars are
the same
probably
So
size.
driving
that,
on
for
it
that
already.
particular
And-
project, the
and some of what-
landowners won't be affected by where the
Yes.
paving
And
area is
similar to what
gonna
I'm
be.
saying
That's
here-
why the letter has been confusing, because there's this misinformation that it's coming up into their
And I just want
homes.
to say, and some of what I'm saying now is based on feedback we got at the Pathways Committee meeting from one of the landowners there. And that's why I'm bringing up the sidewalk so much, because hearing from him, it was a very big safety concern.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
watched the entire meeting, Michael.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I thought it was very, everybody was very friendly to each other, very patient with each other. There was good conversation back and forth, and I came away saying, well, that's pretty clear. Shouldn't be any misunderstanding. Then what I saw in
you
elsewhere
see-
was like, what?
People are very confused.
Were we even in the same meeting? So, I don't know. I think, like I say, I think there's a lot of misinformation, and getting a community meeting going would certainly be
a
very
good
reasonable. And
Yeah, And then the question of what kind of notice we provide abutters, I'd like to, I don't think we're gonna resolve that.
No,
till
not
March.
exactly. I'm just saying I would love to see some recommendations and some thinking put to that effort. And just say, when it reaches a certain level, here's what we're gonna
Yeah.
do, and here, when it gets, now, who sets the level, who determines that? You know, there's gonna have to be some judgment in here, but at least give people an expectation that, you know, when it's something that involves a bond, where, I don't know where you,
Yeah.
Yeah,
what
because we
criteria you
also,
put in.
it's just a balance.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a bid from Farley, and they're telling us when they can get the work done, and if we say, oh, I'm sorry, we have this policy, and we've got to give everybody 30-day notice, so we can't let you start when you can start, we've got to postpone this, and they're like, okay, well, it'll probably be the fall then, because we've got other work, you know, it's
No,
just,
that's legit, yeah.
it's a give and take,
No, that's
and
legit.
we have to be careful that, in the interests of wanting to make sure our
Well,
residents.
it's a policy, it's not a, you know, it's not a requirement, it's not a
Yeah.
legal requirement, it's just, you know, what would we generally like to do as a town, and, yeah, there's always gonna be situations where, okay, can't quite do that. Maybe we misrated that, cause somebody else made a judgment call, but it was in a gray area, I mean, all that's fine and all that's normal, but right now we have kinda nothing, and we're backpedaling on this pretty badly.
Well,
I wouldn't characterize it
I don't
that
think
way,
we're
John. I mean,
backpedaling, I
we've-
think,
All right,
It might
poor,
appear
poor
that way,
choice of
though.
words,
I think,
okay,
I think the idea is to get the correct information out there
yeah, yeah.
for,
Well, we're spending a lot of time trying to correct the information.
yeah,
Yes.
no, I think that's true. I also think we're in an environment where the wrong information spreads faster than the right information.
Correct.
Right, and that's what's happening.
exactly.
And I'm
And
concerned
that's our
about that.
reality, and that's where
Yeah.
the world we're in, and we just gotta start adapting to it.
But to that point, that's why notices are important, right? It's because you can give everyone the opportunity to have it in one place, and that's, but the method, I know we don't wanna, I know you guys probably don't wanna identify that too closely, but the ability to say, this is where you get the correct information, and everyone very clearly, without any, you know, bias or anything to it, can say, that's it. If you wanna know, that's the place to go. And I think that there's value in that. And if there's a solution to that problem, I mean, like I said, I can come back next time with maybe some ideas and some thresholds to this, and then we can, you know, that's something that the four of you can maybe weigh in on, and if it fits, it doesn't, and if we not, we kick it back and we work on it some more.
I tell
Sounds good.
one more thing. From what I heard earlier tonight,
Yeah.
it seemed like the white flags
Yeah.
were the most concerning. Does anybody know what the white flags indicate?
Yes. So white flags are when, I think I mentioned this earlier, but it's for, sorry,
Bless you.
Jeff is sneezing in there. It threw me a little bit. They're dig safe notifications.
Yeah.
So let dig safe know where to mark for where utilities may exist in the ground.
Okay, so those
And
white
it's
flags.
not it's not
It's
the
not where the
boundary.
road's gonna go.
I
and
think
it's not-
that's something that I don't know if that came across. I didn't pick that up,
Again,
because that was confusing or concerning. to some
yeah,
people.
and again, the hard part is if you don't know where your property boundary begins and ends, it's really concerning,
But
right?
just if we could have, if I had heard the white flags that they're concerned with,
Yeah.
that's just where the dig safe is saying there are underground utilities here to be careful of.
To check for you.
To
underground
check
utility.
for it.
Doesn't mean they are
Right, to
existing
check
there.
for
It
it.
means this is where you, from this side
That,
forward.
those
is when
white
you need to
flags
be
do
aware.
not mean we're paving up to that line,
No.
doesn't mean we're digging to that. It's just, this is where utilities may be.
Right. And that's why you,
That might have made a couple people,
for sure, and
Yeah.
but there's,
Calmer tonight.
when you look at these plans, like
Yeah.
the question
There's a
about,
million different questions.
about
which is why
walls and
we're
all that.
having a
Yeah, yeah.
meeting.
and
a
I
lot of
would
those
try-
answers are in the plans, and if
Yeah.
anybody wants a copy, we can email them to anybody at any time.
And they're on the
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
And they're on the
Everybody
website.
can look at them
Yeah.
and see.
I mean,
So-
there's a
Take
lot
the
of
time.
information on there, it's a lot to
Yes,
look at.
it is.
On a small computer screen, but
This is
it's
kind of
there.
an anomaly then for
Yeah,
us,
and then the public.
Yeah.
because
yeah.
of the schedule.
The community
Yeah.
meeting will be the opportunity
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get clarification
Yeah.
on all of that. Okay, I think that's a good way to leave that. Next is the regionalization task force discussion item. And this came out of, through the budget committee meetings, this concern that, perhaps if we can regionalize more of our services, cooperate with other communities, with the county, there might be some cost savings realized there. And of course, regionalization is sort of a buzzword. We've used that a lot. We worked hard through development of our emergency medical services to try to collaborate with our neighbor on that. That didn't pan out immediately. We're still hopeful that will work. There are a lot of times and situations where we have worked hard to try to find partners with us. I think the idea of this regionalization task force is to step back a little bit, not try to immediately find some project that we can work with another town or with the county on, but start to look at what the opportunities, sort of big picture might be for regionalization in the area. Perhaps the regionalization task force, and I'm just throwing these ideas out, and I know there's already a group that's working on some of this, but is also, I mean, one of the issues we've had when we talk about regionalization in Rockport is we're talking to ourselves. I mean, we need, really, the regionalization task force would need ideally to have other partners in some of the other communities to all sit down together and brainstorm on where the opportunities might be, where could there be some cost savings. Because it's difficult to, I think, one of the budget committee members, to dance with yourself. If you're gonna
What was that?
dance with yourself.
Okay.
It's great to think about regionalization, but you've got to find someone who wants to work with you on that. And
Well, I think that could, not to.
no,
I don't
go
mean to
ahead,
interrupt,
go
but,
ahead, because I know you've had some.
I think that gets down to, the people that you select for that. That it's a lot of these kind of efforts are, it's about relationships, and it's about working with other people. You can't just pick anybody out of the community and say, go out there and work on regionalization. You've got to think about who you're going to put on that, in there, and, what are their abilities to, do they have any experience with that kind of thing? And what's worked well in the past where we've had realization, and were they in the room? And, so I think there's some issues there of, what do we want the makeup of this task force to be? And I just want to kind of have a general discussion about it and think about how we're going to establish it. I don't think, yes, it's true, it's just going to be our task force, but I can guarantee the other towns are probably, and
But does it have to just be our task force, I guess, is what I was floating.
Well, like we start with getting our people lined up. And, who do we want representing Rockport in that conversation? And then, then you let the other towns go through their process, and, they're gonna hear we've got something going, and, we reach out, say, can you start to do something? I mean, if you've sat in on any of the meetings, particularly with Camden, they're having the exact same conversations, and it's, they're looking for answers just like we are, they're trying to get their budgets, reeled in, and that regionalization keeps popping into the meetings, so.
Yep.
So I guess I really want to just give some thought to who's the makeup, what's the makeup of what we're looking for? Are we looking for 3 or 4 people? I would say, initially keep it relatively small, because you want to anticipate that you might be merging it with a regional group, regional task force to work on regionalization.
Yep.
And then also what would be a timeline to do that? I just don't want to keep kicking this can down the road. I want to try to hold our feet to the fire a little bit on it. So, not that we would, but I'm just trying to.
Yeah, no, I think, and of course, with elections coming up, there could be some changes in the makeup both here and in other communities. So that-
Yeah. So, I mean, we may feel pretty confident right now that we've got a couple candidates that would be good on that. We should start a conversation with them, maybe begin to talk about what kind of a, mission statement or marching order we want to give to the task force. And I'm not suggesting we do any of that here in this meeting. I just wanted to broach the subject
Yep.
and think about coming back around to it.
Try to have some,
I mean, we talked
Good
about having May
representation.
be our workshop month, and, I think this would be a good one to have in the mix in there, so.
any other thoughts on that?
When you look for regionalization, you're targeting more emergency services, right?
That's one of a laundry list. I mean, I could put together, and I've seen lists of probably at least 6 or 7, just categories of things that we could have a conversation about regionalization. Could be, group purchasing. It could be, we've had regional policing in the past. We've,
I mean, I think
everything
that
from
is,
public works to fire, safety, EMS, sewer. I mean,
and maybe the first start there is to talk about, and not tonight, but to realize that there's already, to make a list of what's already happening. Because it sounded like it surprised some people that Megan, for instance, was actually meeting with other finance directors, and they were learning from how each other was handling things. There was some benefit, there's sort of, regionalization doesn't necessarily mean that you all get rid of your fire departments and have one unitary fire department. It can mean different aspects of that, and maybe over time that's what would end up happening, but you've got mutual aid already. You have, as you mentioned, the group purchasing. There are some aspects where are already working on that that level of collaboration with the towns. So it might be helpful to start, talking to our department heads about the ways in which they're already working with other departments in other towns to help save money, fundamentally. And that's not to say that you wouldn't have the task force, but at least you'd be starting with some information about, and maybe they already have other ideas of what else they could be doing or what else would be useful to do, working with other people in their same position in other towns. So that's
I mean,
just
there may be things like group purchasing, and, that's a big area. I mean, I gotta believe there's other towns that are purchasing sand and.
and salt and
large
bandages.
trucks to plow roads and backhoes and things like that. I mean, there's equipment that we don't use, every day of the week.
And we do share with other towns some of our
Right.
equipment, and what does that look like? And are there,
Right. So, yeah, I think your idea of, let's just do a quick inventory of what we are currently doing, where we collaborate and what degrees of collaboration. I think the mutual aids, it's a pretty good example of, when we need more help, we call Camden, or we call, I don't know who else, Rockland, we call, for when we need another
Yep.
fire truck, or when we don't have a fire truck big enough to reach up there. I think Rockland's the
Rockland.
one we call.
Yep.
So, effectively, it already happens. It's just, we're not sharing the expense. And,
well, and we might be, because for
well,
mutual aid
sometimes
calls, it depends.
we might, but,
Yeah.
for the most part, it's kind of a,
Just
you
working
help us,
together.
we help you. I think we're talking about going to the next level with this.
Sure.
Because what's driving it is the town budget.
Absolutely.
So we have to,
Well, and I
it's
think
nice to know we're all, talking, but that's not saving us money. I mean, not
Well,
not
it might
directly.
be saving us money if mutual aid is meaning we don't have to have as many
No, but
trucks.
I'm saying, like, say with Megan, she's mentoring other towns and they're sharing ideas, and that may, and a good cost-saving idea may percolate up out of that.
Right.
But it's not as tangible as, the kind of things I'm talking about.
Well, and I think that's not to say we don't want to go for the bigger picture issues, but
Yeah.
it is also, I think, important to recognize that there are a lot of good discussions happening and actually implementation of things that are cost savings already.
Yeah.
I mean, I noticed in the town manager report, we now have the Knox County Sheriff's Office helping us out for police shifts because we're down officers again. So there's, people stepping in.
And that's
Well-
that's a short. It's a short term.
Got it. I
it's
know.
not
we're
a-
not- Yep.
I just thank you, Knox County Sheriff's Office, but it's, they're filling in a gap that we have. They have deputies who are willing to do overtime. We can give them a spot to work. It all is wonderful, and thank you, the sheriff and everyone involved,
Strictly stopgap. It's
Right.
Yes,
temporary.
exactly.
Exactly, yeah,
And
right.
we took our actions on the budget with that,
Right,
knowing that we couldn't rely on that.
And this
exactly.
is OT on top of our own officers doing OT to
Uh-huh.
cover,
Yeah.
to cover the
Yep.
vacancies.
Yeah, let's not go to,
No.
But that's and Michael made the point during the budget process, that's something that we also can return in kind,
Right.
right? And so that's the nice thing that we can, when we do have that staffing, we can provide that in return and will.
Okay, well, let's think about where to take that next. But I don't know how we would actually get from, I don't know if it'd be department heads that could
Yeah.
give us maybe just a bullet point list of things that they're already doing that are collaborating with other towns
Yep.
and their
Well-
colleagues.
We'll send the email out now and we'll get the list and,
Yeah,
yeah, I think there'll be,
and no urgent,
some will
I'm not
fit a
trying-
bullet point and some won't. Some will be like a paragraph, for each one, because there's complications, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think that's a good place to start and then build off
and then
of.
I think realistically, the task force maybe doesn't get started until after the election. I mean, and that doesn't mean we couldn't do something with a workshop in May that would start to talk about a mission statement, we'd have this information. But, there's sort of a lull while there's just sort of
well,
uncertainty
my
over.
only thought on that is, we have elections every year. We should just keep going,
Right, but if we're talking about a body appointing people, you have to sort of know who's,
Who's gonna be in
Who's on the
bodies
body?
to do the appointing?
All right, well,
anyway. I'm not trying to kick the can, I appreciate, we'll talk about it more in May, and we'll get some more information, but we also, I think, want to be a little bit respectful of the process.
okay.
Anything else? I didn't see liaison reports on
Yeah.
The next
Agenda.
page,
oh,
yeah, top of the next page.
there we go, okay. So I don't want to cut off any discussion on the regionalization, but does that make sense to,
Good.
okay,
May is good.
good,
May workshop.
good deal. Okay, liaison reports. Anybody want to jump in, Kim?
Mine are pretty quick. No action on the ZBA. And Harbor Committee meetings have been postponed the last couple months, with Abby being out. Let me just pull up that email real quick. I apologize. I know Sam did send out an email today. Sam Temple from the Harbor Committee. Couple things that we still need to work on the Harbor Committee are the response to the comp plan implementation group, reviews of the bridge replacement repercussions and recommendations regarding traffic, storage, and parking. And then the other question there was, how are the spring harbor master tasks being handled? So I don't know if there's anything you want me to take back to them regarding that.
Well, so Rob Parent, who's our deputy harbor master, has been filling in as needed to keep the wheels of the harbor moving forward to some degree. Abby and I plan to chat tomorrow to get a feel out where her recovery is going, and obviously we'd love to have her back as soon as she's able, but to start talking about what those next steps are. So that's probably all I know right now. But if I learn more, I'll let you know, and then you can get in touch with Sam and company. But certainly feel free to have any of them reach out to me too if there's any concerns. But Rob's been, the floats that we were able to get out on the water already were, Rob was a strong hand in helping that get off the ground and into the water. So
All right. And were there any other pressing matters?
not that I'm
Okay.
aware of, no.
All right, yeah. I'll reach out to Sam and let him know, and he
Yep.
can share with the committee and reach out if there's questions. So hopefully a meeting in May. Hopefully Abby's back by then.
Let's hope.
John?
Yeah, I've got a couple things. The Comprehensive Plan Implementation Task Force. Members of the task force have attended 16 meetings of most of the town committees to confirm the timelines for goals expressed in the comp plan. And we're starting to see the results of that in the work plans coming forward, so that's pretty exciting. The only remaining committee that the task force hasn't met with is the budget committee, which was understandably pretty busy of late. All four of the budget committee strategic initiatives are capital related and mostly overlap. So it's not like nothing's happening there. We've pretty much got those in our sights. There also are 17 other strategic initiatives related to other town departments, read staff, outside of Orion's area of responsibility, because Orion's up to his eyeballs in all of this. But so we have to, for those, we have to go to departmental heads in the town, John. So just know that,
Okay.
I think the task force is going to start wanting to, engage there with department
Yeah,
heads
good.
and just get their feedback on the goals that are in the plan
Yep.
and say, what's it looking like for when you might be able to fit this in? And now that the,
Do you want to get it to John and then have you just, or are they going to go directly?
Yeah,
to
what's
department
the,
heads?
how you wanna, what's the process? Do you have a process already decided amongst the group, or?
well, Bob, do you want to jump in on this, or? Yeah, it's, really, we're just pointing it out, John, that the task
Oh,
force has
okay.
been waiting for, for all the other groups to
Okay,
get it, and for the, the town warrant to be, and the budget to be pretty much finalized.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
So, we didn't want to get in the way of any of that.
Maybe the three of us could meet and talk about,
Yeah,
so I can get a sense of it, and maybe we can make it in bite
Yeah,
size.
it's nothing that's gonna be just
Great.
super distracting, it's
Love
more
it.
just, here's what the comp plan's asking for, how does it affect your department, and where do you think you can fit it in, and
Perfect
is it
time of
like-
year for it.
yeah, is it like 3 years
Yep.
from now, or can you do it in the next year? You know,
Yep,
kind
I
of
love
thing.
it. Sounds good.
So, I guess they should have received those goals, Bob, is that correct? Department heads, did we? We're going out this week, so Orion's sending
So they're being communicated with directly through Orion.
through Orion, okay, all right.
And make sure John's I guess I just want to respect the hierarchy, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm on vacation next week, so it's a good time. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah.
When you get that away message, Orion, don't take it personally. But no, we'll look at it, I guess.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, the next meeting of the task force is Monday, April 27th at 9:30 here in this room. So, anybody who wants to attend is welcome. The planning board, things were pretty quiet in Lake Wobegon again, but there are no applications this past month. The rest of the meeting was used to discuss these changes to the land use ordinance, and, well, not these were put through a while ago, but there's more more amendments that may need to be made to better support the new comp plan. Really excited about having Carter come back on the planning board. Sam Clark, who was on the planning board, submitted his resignation due to a change in employment, and I didn't see his resignation before the select board.
I hadn't seen it either.
So, Orion, we probably need to,
He hasn't formally resigned.
oh,
He just said he's got some time commitment complications that he might need.
okay.
If you just want to make that known to the
Okay, so we're probably gonna lose somebody, so it's good that Carter's coming when he did, because it'll fit right in. And he won't need any time to ramp up, which is great. And then just a reminder to everybody, May 28th, we're trying to put a placeholder on that date for a select board, planning board, economic development committee workshop to discuss housing trends and give the planning board a little more guidance on, what they might or might not need to do with the ordinances to support the goals of the group, so to speak. So we're working on mapping some of those particulars out, but I just want to get the date on everybody's calendar. It'll be somewhere around 3:00 in the afternoon on the 28th.
And that's the week, so Memorial Day is the Monday of that week.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's early this year.
All right, well, this might be, the more we're looking at this, the more the thinking is starting to evolve into, a series of meetings on housing, because there's questions that need to be answered kind of in a progressive order here. So rather than have one marathon meeting, we might just break it up into, 3 or 4 one-hour meetings, invite in a speaker on the, kind of what we want to talk about at that meeting. It's all being kind of thought out, and we're just starting to put some of the ideas on paper. So just want to give everybody a heads up on that date, because so far that works for the Economic Development Committee, it works for the Planning Board, because the Planning Board meets on that day anyway, so. Moving on to the Budget Committee. There were some follow-up items that came out of all the discussions we had with the Budget Committee, so I think they're talking about some of the things that they want to focus on. I think the list is down to about 6 from the list my notes anyway, which I think I had up to 12 or something. So it's been winnowing down. One of them is, of course, the performance measures we all talked about, trying to develop new KPIs, the regional task force, long-range forecasting, which, we've effectively kind of hinted at that. John gave a hint at that during the budget
Yeah, and I think those are
process.
now transitioned over. My understanding is that that's in John's wheelhouse at this point, to look into the consultant. I mean, I don't see those as, those are follow-up items now for the town.
I know, I think
based on the-
it's, what I'm talking about is the Budget Committee is just trying to come up with its own, effectively, a work plan for the, kind of like what do they want to see, and maybe suggest to the Select Board or the town that, from the Budget Committee, that they'd like to see these things. I don't think that conversation was completed.
Okay,
I think we talked a lot about it, I captured a lot of notes, and I'm trying to encourage the Budget Committee to now kind of come back to us and as Select Board and say, in addition to our recommendations on the current budget, we'd also like to see some work done here and here and here. Then I think all the other things we've already covered. So those are my reports.
okay. Mike?
Thank you. Now, Michael, you can go to Pathways, your favorite.
Yes, actually, Conservation Commission, I know they're doing good stuff, but I missed the meeting the other day from being in Portland, playing driver for surgery for something. The Recreation Committee, we heard from Jason tonight, and I had my first meeting with them. I was impressed, probably one of the most enthusiastic committee meetings I've ever witnessed. They're all just motivated and highly focused. Pathways Committee, we are having our joint Camden Rockport Pathways Committee meeting this Thursday in here. And Warrenton Street will be discussed, along with the Route 90 grant and Complete Streets, trying to get that stuff wrapped up and the policies all figured out on there. So it should be a good meeting.
So right now, we have the Route 90 grant was how much, Michael?
I don't have
It
this.
was like
exact-
270,000.
How much?
270,000.
270.
And then we have a match of 10% that the town's responsible for.
And that's to design the pathway to the high school, basically, on Route 90?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
If you got more, Ryan's here. He drew it up. He drew up the grant if we need more information, but.
No, are we rolling on that, Ryan?
I'm just waiting on the contract from Mandy.
And to be clear, that 270,000 and the 30,000, that's only for design. There's no construction as part of this.
And there was
So
an
we'll-
Maybe
initial
flag.
effort by the VPI contractor on that path.
Yeah,
So hopefully that'll
right.
get carried. We aren't going to start over. Yeah,
so we already had essentially whatever was a year ago price tag. We have a ballpark
Yeah.
price of what that might cost, and this design phase will essentially put a finer point on those numbers?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And DOT is looking for money for us for the actual building once we get through the design.
All right, and the high probability, this is not a word, but it's an old finance director taught it to me, fundable.
Fungible,
Fungible.
it's a good legal term.
Yeah, is that a legal term?
It's a
Is that where it
legal term.
got from? Okay,
So
fungible.
this bike and ped grant with Maine DOT, whenever they do the first phase of this design phase, you're more likely to get the construction phase. So they're not interested in not funding it on the construction side, if they can fund the designing of it. So there's
waste of
a
money.
pretty good chance we're gonna get a leave room for error, but I don't know when. Will it be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? I don't know, but.
But when they do decide to fund it, they pretty much cover the whole cost of these
No,
kinds
no,
of
we
projects.
would have.
We'll have a match.
We'd have a match of 50%?
I don't know, it depends on the year. So
Okay.
at worst case scenario, we would have a 50% match.
Yeah, best
Hopefully
case, it
there'll
might
be
be
less,
10% or something,
Yeah,
or no match.
And we have TIF monies out that way.
we do, yes.
Okay,
So
so,
it should help us the 10%
Yeah, for
of
the
the
match.
design.
Yes.
When we get that, that's why we have to wait for the contract, so we know exactly how much. Once we know, and if that is, then we would put a package, bring it before the board, and the board would then decide if you wish to cover that for the 10% match.
Great.
So that's
More to come.
why it hasn't come back to you yet, but once the contract's in place, then you'll see it.
Great.
So,
Great.
we haven't lost it, it's just, it needs, yeah, we need more detail.
Okay, thank you.
That's it for me.
Okay, so let's see, Legacy Rockport, just had a photographer, Joel Kelly, who came, did let him go? So Saturday night, met over at Marine Park and took photos of the Vulcan locomotive. And they are so cool. It looks a lot, it's got smoke coming out of the stack, the lights on, and it just, there's an engineer in the,
how did he do smoke out
oh,
of?
is that who the?
He's,
Okay.
so he's the engineer. I'm not really sure what the end result is gonna be, but he's in the
Yeah.
photos, because he wanted to do the night shots to do all the
It just brings it alive. It's
smoke and
really-
mirror. It was
it's very
kind of cool, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, that's a.
What was that? you
And
trained
I
guys?
have to say, Bob Colmar, Bob is who really got us started on restoring the Vulcan.
Lord
reached-
Railroad.
Yes, exactly. He reached out and he said, what are we doing with this? We shouldn't just leave it like this. We should fix it up. And that was sort of the catalyst that got Legacy Rockport engaged, and Rockport Steel and Taylor Allen, amazing people came together, and it's quite a showpiece now. And
Should
then
have
it's
put you up in the engine for the picture.
Yeah. So there's a good story there. Parks, we had a meeting, we'll have a meeting tomorrow actually, but we met in Harbor Park on Thursday to look for to sort of identify ash trees, and it's sort of working, I know the Conservation Commission is really working on this emerald ash borer tree identification, but the Parks Committee has agreed to at least look in the parks for ash trees that could potentially be vulnerable. Because the issue here is when the emerald ash borer hits, and it's expected to hit, it just kills the trees. And you can inject them, and Camden's already started a project to inject trees in the town. And we sort of were like, oh, I guess we better get on this. And the idea is to find trees, really your specimen trees, the ones that really make a difference in your parks, the ones that you're willing to spend a little bit of money on to protect and preserve them. So there'll be more to come. The emerald ash borer gets carried by firewood fundamentally. Georgia, who's the young woman who's just very impressive with her knowledge on this, the beetles are too little to travel very far, very fast. But if people bring in a load of contaminated firewood, then you got trouble. So you've, I'm sure, noticed signs throughout the state about not bringing in firewood from out of state.
Did they say what the cost was to inoculate a tree?
I'm trying to remember what it is. It's fairly pricey. Bill,
Yes,
do you want to?
But I want to mention one other thing that George has worked on with Leticia, is they have an app. It's called Survey 123, and I use it in the water monitoring world through the state. But what they've done it on the emerald ash borer piece, You can go to a tree, identify as an ash, punch it on your phone. This is, anybody can do
Yeah.
this, that they've trained.
She showed us how to do it.
Yeah, that's just awesome. So what happens is it uploads the tree, the location, a picture, if you want, whatever it is. So, and it goes to Leticia, who then maps it
Who's
on
with Knox
GIS,
County.
So we can see them all. She's a Knox County GIS person. And I think that's fantastic. It's a great collaborative effort. I'm gonna meet with Georgia actually for lunch on Wednesday. We're gonna talk about grants.
Great.
So we're gonna. try to
Maybe
move
find some
that.
grant money to help
Yeah.
pay for these costs. yeah.
Exactly. So, no, she's doing great.
Yeah, yeah, real resource. So Parks Committee is at least gonna do that piece of it, of the survey in the parks, so we'll know where our ash trees that we care about are. Library Committee, we just heard Melanie Herring's now on the Library Committee. Some fun programming coming up, that will be,
Wait, don't tell me.
you got it. Although, the bad news on that event, we've got Peter Sagal coming from the NPR Wait, Don't Tell Me program, but we also just got word that the Opera House balcony cannot be used,
Why?
not structurally sound.
Oh,
So that's gonna cut down on the number of people who can come to that event, unfortunately.
When is that one?
May 15th, it's a Friday.
We're still waiting for more details on fixes and repairs,
Could we-
which could impact your May 11 workshop on the Opera House. So stay tuned. I'll know more in the next day or two, but the news was not well received on the balcony.
could we,
Did not get a standing ovation from my desk.
could we move it to the Strom?
The
The Wait, Don't Tell Me,
could talk to them.
could be a tricky time of year, May 15th, if they're doing all their, I mean, we've tried before. I'll talk to Ben.
The spring play is the weekend before.
Still have to tear down. Yeah.
Clue.
Because the last, we had somebody else, NPR guy.
We had Will Shorts, the puzzle guy.
Oh, the New York Times puzzle guy.
Yeah.
He sold out.
Yep, he sold out. This is already sold out now because we have run out of seats.
Oh,
I mean, we didn't want to seat, obviously, we couldn't
I'm
seat.
glad I didn't wait.
Yeah.
tell
Wait,
me.
don't tell me. One last thing on fiber, Axiom just hooked up the first several residences on the new fiber line, so it's actually happening, it's gone live.
So while they're out there with their vehicles, could we,
Yeah, we've got the one in front of the library.
I mean, I don't understand why that, I mean, we've got the pipe
I think we
already
even
there.
paid to put, we paid quite a bit of money to have all that go underground, and then
Right.
one line ended
It's
up
the
still
one
there.
line
They
from,
wanted 7,000, no, they wanted $13,000 to move it initially.
Was that, who was that?
That was GWI,
but now that we've got Axiom, maybe they'll give us,
yeah.
you know, a little bit of a
Maybe we'll
friends
just
rate.
cut it.
There's been they're working through been some pole attachment issues they're working through, but,
So is
I
that
just
in
look
the-
at
in
it and
the
I'm like,
mix
how
of what
hard could
you're
it be
talking?
to just put a cable through a
I-
piece of conduit
You
that's
would
already
think.
there?
yeah. I don't know what the hangup at that time was, but I
Is
can't
Mark
believe it was
aware of that
$13,000 to suggest that that's what it would cost to do that,
Is
that
Mar-
was during my time here, but,
Is Mark Willett aware of this issue and
of
can
the
getting
library,
that-
he and I have talked about it at one point.
can you make sure that
Yeah.
stays on his radar?
Yes, absolutely, because he's also working on a couple other town building issues that he's trying to help resolve for us, which
Great.
would help us on a budget side greatly, so.
Okay, yeah, if you
Knock
can
on
add
wood.
that in so it doesn't get
Yeah.
lost.
Yep.
Great, that's all I've got.
On that note, I just to bring back, at your last meeting, you took action on the pole attack, the pole permit. CMP has now gone back to the drawing board, on that pole. What, the pole was due to have some additional communications, equipment placed on that pole. What it does, I think it's related to the smart metering program, but that's about as far as I understand what they're doing. But they're trying to use existing poles to do that work. But the message was received loud and clear. Rockport has too many poles and you need to get to work and start removing them.
You think?
We have,
Did you
Mike,
count over 100?
173 double poles
Oh,
in
my
Rockport.
goodness.
So that's been presented, and in fact, there was a bit of meeting of the minds with the Axiom project, and so Mike brought that information to the meeting, and so everyone is aware now that they need to stiffen, sharpen their pencils if they're going to add more, and they need to find room to remove some of these poles. So they're on notice, and they know, and let's see if something happens.
We'll sharpen our chainsaws.
There you go. I know a public works director who might have done that before too. Not a current one either. Anyway,
It's just a thought,
it's worked.
Yes,
It works in the
yes.
past.
Yep.
Just saying.
Anything else? We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Michael? All those in favor? Great.
We didn't give Rick a
All right.
chance to talk again.
Thanks, everyone.